Welcome back, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Cardboard Hands. We are back again with episode 29. We are rolling right through these episodes here. Ever since we started being a little bit more consistent, I feel like it's going really quickly. Definitely going to be some clips of that in the future, I'm sure of it. But how's it going, everyone? What's going on, Retro? Welcome back. What's new with you? But yeah, why don't you tell us what's going on? How you doing?
That clip is gonna be the when you get the upcharge email from PSA. That's gonna be the Swami's gonna clip that or something. Make that a YouTube short. But yeah, how am I doing? Doing good. After this, I got my business calc final. So after that, I'll be done. And then in a couple days, on my birthday, applications open for UW. So I get to submit my application.
Wait, your birthday's coming up here?
Yeah, it's the 15th. So oops. So yeah, it'll like I said, applications for UW open that day. So I'll send in my application and then I would be transferring. I think in like March is when it would start. So I'll have a few months off of school, which is nice to have a little break because I'm trying to finish up an album I've been working on for a long time, but I've kind of just
What?
like put it off in the background. Just been busy with work and school and stuff. So it'll be nice to have a few months to kind of like get that wrapped up and
So when you say an album, is it what type of music album are you making? What would you categorize as
rap. Haven't you heard me rapping like?
No, I have. I just wanted
Okay.
you to say it out loud on the
Yeah,
podcast
yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah. Rap
Okay,
for
very
sure,
good.
for sure.
But do you have like a recording studio? Do you have a friend who has one, or do you have like a do-it-yourself one in your closet or something that you use?
No, my so I got a couple like one of my really close friends owns Truth Studios in LA, which is a really, really nice studio. So I might send him like the references and then anything I need to like touch up or fix, do that. And then I might end up like flying out there for a couple days and just knocking out the album there. We'll see. But if not, I got a other buddy that's like maybe I don't know 45 minutes away from me. He's actually who I did the last album with. Really, really talented guy. Very talented producer, but he's an engineer too and has a studio at his house. So we'll see what happens. But I'm just excited to get back to it. I haven't really been able to be. It's just different muscles, and like for the past couple of years, I've been like hyper focused on just like finance and growing, businesses and things like that. And being creative is kind of like taking a back seat for me. So it'll be nice to sort of like get back into that and finish up that project. I'm excited to get that out and see what people think. So.
Yeah, it's really tough to make that kind of content, like in writing in general with music. I used to when I was like in community college and like high school and like kind of younger. I used to hang out with a lot of bands and band members, to the point where like I attached myself to like one band and was like their manager, and I would help find shows for them and just travel around, and they were my best friends and everything. So I was pretty tapped in with the local music scene and a lot of musicians and everything, and I know how hard it is to actually do the craft and be good at it. So like props to you for going through with it and actually recording an album, because like my band, we only recorded like 3 or 4 songs, and it was in this like crappy little recording studio in this industrial area. It was above like a glass blowing station, and it was hella like ghetto, but it was a recording studio that was cheap, and they let us record there, and it was like the most low quality, but props
It's
to
a
you for
lot.
doing it.
There's a lot more logistics with a band too, right? Because you
Yeah.
got to mic all the instruments
Oh yeah,
individually.
big
There's
time.
multiple tracks to mix with rap. It's a little bit easier. You kind of you got the beat
That's
and the
true.
vocals and stuff. So it's a little bit easier to do.
But there's
Doesn't
more
require.
lyrically going on there, and it's more personal with rap. So like, whereas
That's
like it's more of
true.
a
That's true.
group kind of effort with a band sort of thing. Of course, the singer, they're putting a little more into it with their vocals and everything, but usually it's still a group effort, with even the vocals with things. But when you're the artist, when you're just rapping or whatever, you're doing everything. You're even making the beats in most cases. I had another friend who's kind of he blew up a little bit when we were younger, and I don't know if he's like he's a big artist, big compared to like a lot, but I don't know if you'd call him like a huge artist. His name's Kai Straw. He's a rapper from like San Francisco at this point, I think is where he lives. But yeah, he does that, and he puts out regular music and albums and stuff and videos. He does music videos and stuff, does a really good job with it. And I just know how much work it goes into that. So I'd love to hear it, and I think our audience would love to hear it too. So you guys will have to go check him out. I'll try to get him to put some of it on his YouTube, or somehow get a link to his album somewhere or somehow. But
Yeah, I'll drop a link. I'll drop a link when it's done, and if people, if people want to go check it out, they're definitely more than welcome to. That'd be kind of cool.
perfect. So yeah, that's awesome. Like I completely forget sometimes that like you are very musically talented, because like the few times that I see it is just jokingly when we're like at conventions or like in the Discord, you'll drop a couple bars, like some like funny goofy raps or something about what we're talking about. So that's where it comes out. So it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. But a lot of our viewers would be probably surprised to hear that. So that's I think that's what that's all about. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, that was definitely like the highlight of Orlando for me. One of the big things we connected on was just rap, and like very lyrical rap, and just like the craft of writing. Me and Nesto for sure. So to meet him in Orlando last year, and he's really good at rapping too. So
I didn't know that. I'm not
I
surprised to hear that, but I didn't know
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Man of
brought
many
my
talents, apparently.
Bluetooth speaker, and I was playing beats, and we were rapping at the Airbnb. So that was a good time for sure. So definitely cool to find somebody, in the through Pokemon, that is into, the same stuff as you, and is talented. So yeah, just kind of fun for sure. So
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty crazy ride with Pokemon. I have to say, you meet a lot of crazy people. I mean, crazy in the best way possible too. And Nesto is definitely one of those people, those crazy people. I'm happy I met. So, shout out to Skater Nesto out there. We appreciate you. I know you're gonna watch this eventually, so we'll see you, I'm sure, down in the comments. But yeah, so I mean, other than that, anything else going on? You decorated for the holidays. You put up like Christmas lights all around your house. You fallen. I see you don't have a broken back, so you haven't fallen off and broken any bones. But do you decorate for the
uh,
holidays?
I'm pretty minimal. Maybe when I'm like older, if I'm like a dad or something, I'll get into it. But we don't even really have like a tree or like we were thinking about getting a tree this year, but I need
That
to
wouldn't
get
fly in my house.
yeah, I need to get more like organized with just like my inventory and stuff in general. So I think once we do a little more organization, maybe we'll have some room for like a tree or something like that. But I miss like the holiday spirit, as cheesy as that sounds. But I don't know, like I just don't have the time. My girlfriend works, she's in school, I work, I'm in school, and it's just not like a priority, but it's definitely something that I miss. So at some point, I'd like to make time for it. Maybe not do the whole like Chevy Chase crazy lights and stuff on the roof and stuff, but at the very least, like put a wreath up in a tree and some stuff like that. So um, yeah, and I'm horrible at wrapping presents. Like I'm so bad. So
That's the best ones. The ones that look like they're wrapped by like a 2-year-old. It's all like wrinkled up. Like I'm notorious for wrapping with newspaper. I like wrapping presents with
okay,
newspaper, and
okay.
then it's not because I don't have wrapping paper. We have wrapping paper. It's just like I like the look of it, and then you put like the bow on the outside, the actual ribbon bow with the newspaper wrapping. It's kind of black and white with a pop of color. It just has a nice aesthetic, in my opinion. My fiance does not like that, so like we have different opinions about the holiday and like what we
I think
like
the
and we don't.
newspaper could look cool. I think that might be kind of like a hipster.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if it
that
was
it does
done
kind of have
well,
that hipster kind of vibe for
yeah,
sure.
if it was like clean corners, and like if it
Yeah,
was like
yeah,
I
you
think
wrap it like a normal present, like super
okay,
cool, and then you use like the colored wrapping, like the actual fancy bow ribbon or whatever you call it, and you just
okay, yeah,
put it
yeah,
on.
yeah.
So it
All
looks
right.
still like it's, but it's got newspaper. But anyway, she's really traditional. She really likes that like that white, pink, red, and green kind of like Christmas frosty vibe, that real traditional. And she loves Christmas. So, like, this is actually our first year of having like a big full tree we've always lived in small places and apartments and like tiny. It's California, so it's really we're not homeowners, so our space is typically very limited. And I've always felt the same way you did about like it's always a mess, and I don't want to bring in more around the holidays. I'll just go to someone else's and celebrate and stuff. But as the years have gone by, and like the more that the more holidays that go by where I don't do that, and then like after the fact I somewhat, I don't want to say I regret it, but I'm like, I probably could have and I just didn't, just because the more it makes me want to actually participate. And so in the last few years we've kind of gone a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. We started getting like little trees because we couldn't have the space for a big one, or we didn't think we had the space for a big one. And so we would get like a little tiny one and put it on the counter. Then like the next year we got like a slightly bigger one and put it on the floor on like a little stool kind of thing. And now this year we've gotten like a giant Christmas tree. Like we got a 6.5-footer artificial one that we can use every year. And we just kind of shove it in the
It's gotta
corner.
be the artificial, bro. Like it's gotta be like I'm
Yeah.
not trying to deal with the bugs and having cleaning all the pine needles. Like hell no,
I
you
mean,
know.
I think the smell of a real tree is kind of nice,
Yeah,
and I would be all about
that's
that. But
true.
it's just my fiance is allergic to pine and that kind of
Oh,
needle,
okay,
so like
okay.
we can't really have one anyway for that reason. So like we do artificial for that. But
See,
ever since we
I live in
started,
the woods, bro. If
yeah,
I want that smell, I just walk outside.
it's
Like
different. We Californians, we have to like go and chop down a tree and put it in our house. It's rotting
y'all ain't
corpse in
even
our
got
house.
no trees, bro. All that shit is burnt to the crisp. Like
Listen, we haven't had a bad fire season, knock on wood, this year yet. Like this October, it's typically October is by the time, if it hasn't happened then it's not really gonna happen. California has terrible
I feel
fires though, and we're right in the thick of it. So like you say that, but it's a real thing, and we are very thankful that this year it hasn't been a thing.
I
But yeah,
lived in
it's
I
gonna
lived
be a
in
fire hazard in my house. Looking at my Christmas tree at this point, because we decorated it so like, because that's all I
yes,
was doing this
exactly.
last week was decorating. That thing is packed. Like while I'm a minimalist, Sarah is not. She likes it as full as possible. And I saw a meme on like a Facebook post the other day, and it's a Christmas meme, and it was like a husband and a wife, and they were taking a picture together, and the wife was like behind him kind of smiling, and the meme's caption said, my they say that relationships are all about compromise. She wanted a Christmas tree in 12 Christmas trees. I only wanted a Christmas tree in the front room. So we bought 12 Christmas trees.
Yeah,
So that was the compromise that was made. And
yeah.
that was the compromise that was made in my house. So it's Christmas out in here. And I know that someday you'll probably get there too. And I'm sorry when that day comes, because
Gotta choose your battles, bro. Like, it is what
yeah.
it is, but
No, but you're right though. The holiday spirit, it's a lot more there when you got a big tree up, and it feels different when you got the holiday. You're playing the Christmas music in the background instead of your usual go-to kind of songs or whatever. And you're having like hot chocolate instead of like drinking your usual like whatever coffee. I don't know what.
I was dude, we were playing the music, I don't know, like a week ago or something. And I was sitting there making dinner and I look over at my girlfriend, I'm like, people in the 30s were hyped on Christmas. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are no modern other than like the Mariah Carey. Like, all the Christmas songs that are classics are from like the 30s and 50s. Because like people didn't have as much stuff to look for. Like, people didn't have TikTok and N64s and GameCubes in the 50s. Like, bro, when Christmas came around in the 50s, you were like, whoo, like you were hyped. You're like, I'm getting the sleigh out. Like, I'm making the most of this, because that was like what you had to look forward to. But it's just funny, man. Like, and you listen to the lyrics, like chestnuts roasting on, like people were hyped on cooking nuts, dog. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that, it's funny, man. But yeah, no, I really, I like Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack kind of stuff just in general. So, not even just like the holiday stuff, but just like his music and Dean Martin and Nat King Cole and all that kind of stuff.
A real classy kind of, that old school classy
Yeah,
vibe.
like
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of that kind of music, so I really like throwing that Rat Pack kind of Christmas holiday stuff on around the holidays. It definitely hits and gets you in the spirit. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
I am an unashamedly I'm a big lover of Mariah Carey's Christmas music. I
Bro, that is a high. All right, you heard it here,
Yeah,
heard it here first, folks.
Mariah in my eyes is the queen of Christmas as far as that's concerned.
What's your
And
favorite Mariah Carey song? "We Belong Together." That's a bop.
okay,
You
so
know?
first of all, she's got some good regular songs, but that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, Mariah Carey is Mariah Carey, but like in Christmas time, she's the queen, and it's
Yeah,
all I
bro, she
want for Christmas.
prints every year off that
It's
song.
all I want for Christmas. That's the best, in my opinion, Christmas song. I mean, it's not the one that I tend to listen to the most, but it's the one that I always kind of go back to and be like, okay, it's kind of a banger of a song, to be honest, and she kind of wins for that. But I want to know down below. This is gonna be the first comment bait
Favorite
in
Christmas
the
song?
video. Favorite Christmas song, and tell me why or why not you either love or hate Mariah Carey around the holidays, because I know that everyone has a strong opinion about her and that song, All I Want for Christmas. But my opinion on that song is I absolutely love it. And
I'm
it's one
not.
of the holiday
I'm,
songs I'm not mad at.
I'm not mad at the Mariah Carey holiday song. Here's the issue I had. Like, I've since I was a kid, loved Eminem. Her and Eminem were together for a minute. They had a breakup, blah blah blah, and she made a song like basically dissing Eminem, and I was like, Mariah, that's it for me. That's it for me. Like, you're out of here. Like, I can't condone this. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, like, yeah, Mariah Carey's got some slaps for sure.
I
I'm not
love
even
her.
gonna lie.
I just think she's so funny. And one of my old coworkers had told me she went to. So my old coworker at the winery I used to work at was a teacher in New York, or not in New York, but in like somewhere near New York. I think it was actually in Brooklyn. I don't know the area. So she was a teacher in Mariah School's area, or Mariah Carey's area. And she was a tutor part time because New York was expensive. So she would tutor after school. And Mariah Carey wasn't one of her students, but she was one of her friends who also tutors her friend's students. So she knew of Mariah Carey when she was growing up. And and this is a story that always stuck out to me. And this woman is I love this woman to death. And I know she's not lying about this story, but she told me that Mariah Carey was such a problem child to tutor for her friend that her friend came to her to console her and ask what to do about it, because they were close. They were in the same group or whatever, and they're both teachers. And she said that she had this girl who refused to learn and do her English and learn how to read and write and do like the basic like reading. Is her issue was apparently was like reading comprehension or whatever it was, because her mommy and daddy told her that she wouldn't need school or to do well in school because she was going to be a rich and famous singer when she grew up. And by George, it freaking happened. And every other story I've ever heard about Mariah Carey, about her being a diva, her being this or that, or being like a princess, and like just and everything I've ever seen has corroborated that story that she had said is, and it's just it always stuck out to me, and it made me love Mariah even more. So I understand how people may feel, but that's my thoughts on it. I want to know down below what you guys think, but that's enough Mariah Carey talk and enough
Yeah,
holiday
yeah, yeah.
talk. But
18 minutes, Christmas, Mariah Carey. Like,
we're gonna have a whole holiday episode for you guys. We're gonna take a
yeah.
week off but we're gonna do a holiday episode before the holidays. We're gonna try to get that out, so you'll get your holiday talking. We're gonna have a whole section, a flip, invest, flip or skip, a holiday special. It's gonna be you'll like it, I promise. But
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I forgot about that one. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
oh, don't
that's a good
worry. I
one.
didn't forget it. That's gonna be a good one. I like that one. I think that you guys are gonna like that one too. But all right, so we can probably move on. That was my week. I just did a lot of Christmas stuff. It's been all holiday. I'm always delayed. I am not one who likes to skip Thanksgiving and go to Christmas, because Thanksgiving is actually my favorite holiday out of all the holidays. So like I refuse to immediately, like after Thanksgiving, put up a Christmas tree and forget about it. So we usually decorate like the week, the first week or something. It's not like we're not really rushing to do Christmas, but we're there now. So that was my whole week, and that's where I've been. So I apologize if we were a little delayed. Everyone else in the chat's like, I put up my tree on December or November, blah, 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 or on Black Friday. It's like, I get it. But we'll
Oh
go.
yeah, real quick too, because we always talk about anime and Jujutsu Kaisen. I
Oh,
saw this
yeah.
video. I'll have to send it to you on Instagram. I think it was on like GQ or something, but they were interviewing Meg the Stallion, and they were asking her to rate animes, and she's a fan of Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, all this. She's like, "Oh, bro, that's so hard. Like, all those are fire." Like,
Yeah.
it was just kind of cool to see because it's like, I don't know, like, Meg the Stallion doesn't come to mind as like, ooh, like she would be a huge anime fan. I mean, there's a lot of rappers. Like, rappers have always talked about anime, Dragon Ball Z, all that kind of stuff.
Naruto, yeah, they've
Um,
always been into that, like
Yeah,
low
for
key.
sure. But it was just interesting because she's in like a dress at like some fancy event or something, and they're up there like interviewing her about anime, and she's like, "Oh, I fuck with Jujutsu Kaisen heavy and My Hero Academia." I'm like, "Hell yeah, Meg, let's go!" So I thought that was funny. I'll have to send it to you.
Yeah, that's I mean, I'm not surprised. Like it's crazy how like mainstream culture anime has become these days, and like Japan culture and or that like that kawaii culture sort of has invaded really the western space very much so. So
Well,
I'm
and
not
vice,
surprised to hear that really.
yeah, and I mean vice versa too. Like in Japan, hip hop culture, like especially like 90s hip hop culture is
Mhm.
huge in Japan. Like there's a whole subsection of people that, rock like Tommy and Polo and Adidas and Nikes, like, vintage 90s like rapper gear. And just like vintage 90s rap is huge in Japan. Like they love that stuff. So it's cool how those cultures have kind of like cross pollinated. So
Yeah, I'm happy to see that they are doing that because it really means that they're meshing and that people are enjoying it and being able to like. I've heard some crazy like culture collision, like using old like '90s Japanese J-pop kind of like tracks and stuff, and then putting newer things over it and mixing it. And I listen to a lot of stuff online, like a lot of mixes on YouTube and stuff, and it's a lot of old '90s J-pop stuff, and I hear like remixes and things done with all that stuff, and it's really good. So I
well,
like to see that.
have you seen like AMVs too, like anime music videos where they'll take like a trap song and then throw like the anime, like cut up clips of like anime fight scenes over the song and make a music video out of it? Have you seen those before?
I haven't looked at them specifically, like looked for them or called them that, but I've seen like clips of stuff from. I didn't know that's what they're called, but yeah, that I mean that's that kind of uh collision is really nice when you see that working well together. It's a cool like crossover.
Yeah, for sure. Last thing, my favorite soundtrack ever for an anime is Samurai Champloo because it's done
Oh
by,
God, yes,
yeah,
it's so
it's
good.
the whole soundtrack is done by Nujabes, which is kind of like the Jay Dilla maybe, or like the DJ Premier of Japan.
He's
Nujabes
got a
is
very
very
a very you like his sound is very iconic to him. It's a very he's not around anymore. He passed
jazzy.
away, right?
Yeah, yeah, he passed away, but like very jazzy. He uses a
Yeah.
lot of like traditional Japanese instrument sampling, and definitely got like the lo-fi hip hop vibe for sure. But like that whole show is like all his music, and it's just like samurai fight scenes to smooth hip hop beats. So that's a recommendation. But all right, we can get into the meat and potatoes of the
And if
of the
you
podcast.
haven't already seen it, Nick, one last recommendation for you is Everything Everywhere All at Once. I watched that recently and it was a
Okay.
profoundly good movie. I would highly recommend you and anyone else watch that. It's a multiverse movie. And so if you're into like the whole multiverse type thing, you will absolutely love it. That's all I want to say about it. But
Okay.
shout out to
Okay.
anyone who's seen that. It's a really good one. So, all right, now we're going into Crossfire.
Crossfire.
Oh, shoot. I need to get the, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I need it. Need it. Need the clip. Where are you? Where are you? Okay, so yeah, now we're
The future. The ultimate challenge. Crossfire.
and this is the cringe, and it will never, ever get old. I just,
The greatest thing about Fire Emblem is that the company that made that game probably doesn't even exist anymore. So the chances of us getting like in
yeah,
trouble for that are very slim. So
it's at this point, it's almost, I think it's like 20 plus years old because I think it came out in like 1993. Or no, I think it's 92. So I think it's older than 20 years old also. So the fact the sheer amount of people in this podcast who probably don't even know what it is because they're just aged
Nah,
out
bro,
of
it's
it.
from 1971. It was
That's
when it
from
was
before the 90s?
is
Oh,
when it
so
was originally created. Yeah, Milton Bradley in 1971 is what Wikipedia says. That's great. Oh, it says
so
the early 1990s American commercial campaign is
okay, the clip was from the
arguably more
90s.
better known. So
That
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense. That's where I remember it from is the clip from the 90s. But like, oh, I didn't know the game was for that. Oh my gosh. It's a terrible game. Like I remember playing it and it would just like the thing wouldn't roll well. It just didn't it didn't work like you would want it to, like you would think, but the commercial made it way more hype than what it was. But anyway,
bro. You know what else? You know what else is like that? Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Dog,
that
when you
was
would watch the commercial for Rock'em, you were
you
like,
would
"Oh
think
my
you would
god, that
be
is the cool." And you get it in real life, and you're just like trying to, and like they're, you know, it's so
they just like
stupid.
punch in
Like,
the same place and you're like, move,
yeah, like
dude.
it. Oh man, yeah, man, 90s, those 90s like Cartoon Network era commercials, like they had us hooked, man. Like you'd be
They were
watching a TV
good.
show and
They knew what they were doing because they are ingrained to this day. They made it on as like the question theme of a Pokemon podcast, and it's not even a Pokemon thing. So like, props for that, I guess. But anyway,
yeah.
this time I'm gonna make you go first this time because I think that mine. I had to make a last minute change to it because well, we'll talk about it soon. But I think you're really gonna like mine, and it'll lead to a good one. So.
All right. All right. So mine, because Josh recently shared with me, and I think he said he shared it on maybe like some podcasts or something like that. But very, very excited for Josh. He is looking to purchase a house in the coming year. So congrats on that. Hope your house search goes well. So my crossfire is related to that, and because it's it's a big purchase, it takes a lot of time, a lot of finances. What hard decisions are you thinking that you're going to have to make in order to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, like, when you're thinking of saving for anything or making a big life decision, it's kind of hard to make any of those decisions without having it affect the rest of your life in some way, shape, or form. And when it comes to like something like that, it's going to be a big financial decision and also kind of a big like change when we actually do go through with signing all the paperwork, finding out, and like doing the damn thing, like actually the process of doing it. And so it's going to be a lot. And the biggest thing I think for us that we're probably going to have to adjust to is just cutting back in general all of our overall spending throughout the year because as much as I like to think that we live a pretty like frugal, like low spend kind of like no frills lifestyle. I live in California. That's where the majority of a lot of my bills will go is because bills are kind of high in California for like rent and groceries. All that stuff is high. Everyone knows that. That's not a joke. But like other than that, I try not to spend too much, but I do end up spending frivolously eating out, going when I'm going out to like places, I'll go to the movies sometimes, go to farmers markets instead of going to the grocery store, which everyone loves farmers markets and likes to pretend like it's like a great decision to go to the farmers market. Financially, it's never a good decision to go to the farmers market. You think like, oh, buy local, you save money. That's great. Everything. No, you do not save money. Okay. You are spending $50 to $100 every time you go to the farmers market. And if you're not, do you even like food? So I just things like that, being more financially aware and responsible, and actually setting aside like a fund for a house. Like I always have my like I intended to use a portion of my retirement as like a fund to fund my first home purchase. Then I could also get like a first time home loan, a first time home owner's loan, and also use other things like my sealed collection. That's the only thing I would ever consider selling would be my sealed collection for would be either a big life event like buying a house. And I've joked a lot of times about never wanting to sell that thing, but that is something that I would definitely consider doing when it came time to. And so like those are the types of decisions that we are going to be making that we've already started kind of implementing. But really very much so in the future, it's going to be like putting the pieces into place, doing what needs to be done financially, and then making the adjustments in your everyday life to things that you can make adjustments to that you don't necessarily look at before. Because before, you weren't, if you weren't, you're just saving for a trip, or you're saving for college, or paying off the car, or whatever the big thing in your life you're trying to save up to do. Once you accomplish that and you're just kind of not doing another thing, you get to be a little frivolous with it. So that was where we were at in the last year or so. We set aside money for our wedding. We had the money set aside, so we weren't really saving for anything because we already have it. And so we haven't been saving for the house because we did that goal, but that's going to be our big move, is we're going to start doing that. So it really depends less though on that and more on how the market moves, because I don't really want to buy a house right when it's about to collapse. And I've felt for a while.
Yeah, I'd wait. I'd wait maybe like for interest rates to come down a little bit because right now they're pretty nuts. But I would just say like a house is it's probably like one of the best you have to think of it too. Like I know last time we were talking about your buddy who bought a house, and if he's not living in it and he bought it specifically to flip or whatever, that's a completely different story. But um, a house is not like, you shouldn't think of it like, oh, I'm buying the top of the market. Like obviously it doesn't feel good if you buy a house for $500,000 and then 2 months later it's worth
It
400.
just
Like that's,
feels like we're on the
but it's
precipice and have been for like the last year
I
and a
don't I
half,
don't know I don't know, man. Like I think rates will come down, but and that'll reduce monthly payment. But like I mean that's another one of my businesses, right? Is I shoot drone photography for real estate, and at least in Washington, I mean every state's real estate market is its own little like micro economy for sure. But like houses are, even with high interest rates, houses are selling over here. Like it for the past like
and
two
they've
or
been
three years.
continuing to do that. That's what's been happening ever since pandemic. It's
Yeah,
insane. Yeah.
low inventory, and like part of that too is because like commodity prices shot up during during the lockdowns and stuff like that, and so the price to build houses for home builders like went drastically through the roof, and then obviously now like it's tough on home builders because interest rates are so high. People can't afford it, and then they're obviously having to like finance, like they're having to sit on the house until it sells. Interest rates to them are also very high, so there's a lot of like little stuff like that that goes into it. But yeah,
But
I
no,
mean,
I
maybe
hear
wait
what you're
for
saying about it being a good investment though, because it's
the
one of
best
those things.
investment you'll ever make, dog.
Yeah,
Like
because instead
there's
of
so
paying
much.
rent, you could be paying mortgage, and you're owning. It's not like you're just throwing that money into someone else's, pocket. You're actually throwing that money into your own owner, something that you own and that you can then sell later on, and we get your money back, move somewhere else. There's lots of things, you're living there. So that's why it is one of those things that's a big part of our next year's goals. And even with the market, if it doesn't sort of adjust, it's one of the things that we're going to have to eventually just swallow. It's a
I
tough
mean,
pill to swallow.
even if it draws down a little bit after you buy it, like real estate it just goes up over time, man. Like it appreciates really well.
Mhm.
You look at population growth, like the earth is not having any more spots available for people to live, but the population on earth keeps getting bigger every year. So like you want to think of some real big brain fundamentals. I mean, there you go, right? Like, and it is kind of crazy, like once you buy property or a house or whatever, it's kind of crazy to think like I own a piece of the earth, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's weird. I don't know, man, but it's a good feeling, and I'm excited for you. And also like being that we run businesses from our home,
Yeah,
it's kind of cool
it
to be
makes
able to be
sense.
like, this is my permanent space. I
Yeah.
can build this how I want. I can, if I want to put an extra room in, or like put an extra wall in, or do some shelter, or whatever. Like you don't have to worry about that stuff because you're not renting. Like you can set it up for permanent. Like what makes you comfortable, what works for you and your business and things like that. So yeah, man, I'm excited for you for sure.
Yeah, that's maybe the only thing that will make me leave California is home ownership. It's not something that I would like to do, but owning a home or a piece of property in California is just exponentially more expensive. And for us, and for what I do, where I work from home and I don't have to be in the place that I'm in, it helps having a local area that I can drive and do local shows and stuff too, which is one nice thing about California that you kind of pay for. It's not really baked into the cost, but it sort of is at the same time. There's much to be said about living. There's pros and cons, right? There's just pros and cons of either way, and so that would be one thing that might draw me out of California, or even to a different part of California, a cheaper part of California, because like home ownership would be, it would be a juicy enough prospect for me to potentially do that, but it'd be very hard to get this Californian to leave the state, willingly, if it wasn't for something that was really, really worth it. I have a hard enough time traveling away. I've just gotten comfortable traveling away from California. You're talking about leaving to move. That's a little different, buddy.
It feels weird for a little bit, but I don't know. Eventually, you settle in. But like, you want to like, I mean, where you're at, like NorCal is not cheap.
No.
So like finding like another area, because I mean, you want to, if at all possible, like you want to try to get that 20% down. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck with what's called PMI, which is like an extra payment that doesn't go towards anything. That's just an extra level of insurance that the bank's going to tack on there. It could be like an extra $300 to $500 a month.
So 20% in California, you're not going to get a house for under like 300,000, 400,000 really in California. So 20% of that, it's a big chunk of change. Yeah.
Start saving, dog. Start selling some magic boxes.
Yeah, it's a big chunk, but it's not as big as one might think. So it's one of those things that, like, I'm not looking at $1 million homes. I wouldn't be looking at anything like that. And I actually think that 300,000 or 400,000 in California is probably on the lower end. So I probably would have to look much higher than that if I wanted to stay in the area I was at. But it's not something that's unrealistic, and it's definitely I'm at the point where that's why we're sort of talking about that, and that's why we've been sort of trying to make those moves, because at a certain point in life, you either decide that you're either going to rent forever, or you're going to eventually own and start paying there and just buckling down and saying, okay, I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going to lie to myself and say I'm going to move around my whole life. And it's like most people when they rent, they stay in the same place anyway too. So it's very much so. It makes sense. So yeah, I like that. That was a good one. I appreciate it. Mine's not nearly as serious. But it's definitely good though, so I think you're gonna like it regardless.
I'll come up with it next week when we do the holiday episode. I'll come up with a goofy one for you. I know I've been
goofy.
Serious.
It's just not as like it's not as like financially driven.
Yeah, okay,
There's much numbers involved with it, but it's definitely serious. So. All right, my crossfire is going to come with a short shout out to the Slab podcast, because I had one all lined up for us to do here, but then I was listening to their stream before this. I got like halfway through it or whatever, and they were talking about something just came up, and it completely changed my decision. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask this to Nick, because I think it'll be a hilarious question, and the world needs to know, and I want to know, but. When it comes to Pokemon, there's a lot of them out there. And just like with animals, they're not all going to taste good, and you're not going to want to eat all of them. But if you were in the Pokemon world and you had to eat any Pokemon, which Pokemon do you think you would be the most excited to eat? And bonus question, which Pokemon would you be the least excited to eat?
Okay. Well, least excited would probably be like
some bad ones.
Like something like I remember I tried uni, not for me. Like that, the texture, it's just I can't do. I love sushi. I'll eat raw fish, but like uni, for whatever reason, like the texture, like I couldn't do it. So
there's different types of uni, and uni is so dependent on the day in which you got it. Literally,
I got it from Sugarfish. So like I don't know if you've ever been to Sugarfish before in LA, but like they're pretty. It's good quality fish for sure. But like it's just the texture. It's just a textural thing, man. Like I couldn't do it. But. So something like slimy, I think there's like a sea urchin Pokemon even maybe. So like, yeah, something like that I'd probably be all set on, which is weird because like, but eel isn't really slimy. Like I love unagi, but so I would say the Pokemon that would probably make the most sense to eat. And I actually feel terrible saying this because I'm pretty sure it's endangered because it's in the safari zone, but Tauros, yeah, because it's like it's beef, it's like a bowl or something, so it's it's probably like steak. You could get like a Tauros steak or something like that, but
How would you think the best way to prepare it would be? What would you want your Tauros prepared? Like, what dish?
Man, I really like either like blue cheese on it or sautéed mushrooms. I like that with steak, but I rock with the mashed potatoes too, like classic steak and potatoes type deal. But I love some blue cheese on steak. Like I know a lot of people like blue cheese is kind of polarizing, but like you gotta have the taste for it. But man, I love blue cheese, so I'd probably rock with some blue cheese Toros. Sorry,
I was this close to getting my ACA certification, my American American
Yeah,
Cheese
that's right. I
Association
remember.
certification. So I also like blue cheese. Blue cheese isn't my favorite cheese, but I'll definitely fucks with some blue cheese. That's for sure. I'm real boring with my cheese selections. Like I like cheddars and goudas. I like hard aged salty cheeses that aren't typically as funky. Cheddars can even be a little funky for me, like actual cheddars. But my fiance loves those like stinky blue cheeses and like ribiolas and like
It's
soft
Yeah,
cheeses,
but you,
you
you
know.
can't like I don't know if I could necessarily do like a whole slice of what I'm saying? Like blue cheese to me is more like a garnish. Like you put
Yeah.
it on salad or like I'll throw like if I'm making like a mushroom risotto, I'll throw like a little blue cheese in with the mushroom risotto, like that slaps or whatever. But I could eat like cheddar with crackers, you know what I'm saying? Like slices of cheddar, slices of Gouda, but like I don't know if I could do it might be a little much, you know what I'm saying, to do like the stinky cheeses in large amounts. Brie though, like Brie dog, like Brie kind of slaps. Like you get some crostinis, you get a little balsamic, maybe some honey or whatever. Like, oof, super.
Yeah,
I love me some Brie.
so there's got to be like a cheese Pokemon out there, right? Is there a cheese
I
Pokemon
don't
yet?
know.
There's not. That's one that okay. Cheese Pokemon coming soon. I guarantee
For
it. You
real.
heard it here first. They're gonna steal it. Pokemon Company creatures. I want a portion of the profit when you make the cheese Pokemon. So we're gonna go retroactively and come back to this podcast next generation when they inevitably make the cheese Pokemon. So then we can show them that we've called it out first, and then they can pay us because that's how that works, right? It's got to be how
Yeah,
that works.
something like that. Dude,
Yeah,
the funniest one was the new one, Skull Villain. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen
I
that?
know the name, but I can't picture the
It's
look.
like a dragon, but his heads are two peppers. And it's like, cause I just thought it was funny because the Scoville scale is like, bless you, bless you. This man's
Oh
wilding over
man,
here, sneezing. You got to get that Costco lemonade in him. But yeah, no, it's like it's a two stage I want to say, but one of them's called Scoville, and I
oh
thought
like
it
a
was funny.
Scoville, like on the
Yeah,
hot.
the spiciness scale.
Oh,
Yeah. I thought that was funny, but
that is funny. I
it,
like
it
that.
at this point, it's like, man, we're making like Pepperhead Pokemon. Like I don't know,
They've always been
but
about the puns. They've always been that kind of way, like with just in general Japanese culture, like all of the Dragon Ball Z characters are all named after foods. Like they like puns, you
yeah.
know what I mean?
I think I think the best Gen 1 Pokemon name is Ditto because it captures the 90s. Like Ditto, you know what I'm like
Yeah.
that word is like a 90s early 2000s word, and for like what the Pokemon like that matches, they hit the nail on the head with that one. Like that matches up really really well. So that's yeah. Shouts out to you, Pokemon. You knew what you were doing.
So moving right along here, I appreciate you playing with that
Yeah,
crossfire.
that was a good one. That was a good
But the
one.
one before that wasn't very good at all. So I'm glad that we were able to come up with a good one on the fly like that. So shouts out to the Slab Podcast. If you haven't heard of them, they're our friends over there. Professor Oak and Green Shiz, some great guys. Go check them out. But we love you guys. So moving to the next topic here, but this is going to be one of our main topics. We have like two kind of main topics that we're going to talk about, and one of them being, are we late to the party? And so we sort of have got a little bit into this in past pods, but not really exactly into the topic. So you brought this one up, and I really liked the idea of it, and so we wanted to kind of delve a little bit more into this concept. So I don't know if you want to kind of start us off, since you brought it up, and kind of say what you were intending with it when you're thinking there, and I can kind of maybe give you a little bit of my thoughts, or however you want to do it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I'll explain like what I meant by it, and then you can tell me how you feel. Basically, just like, and this happens in lots of markets, not just Pokemon, but basically people thinking like, like you talk about like Bitcoin or something, like, oh, I should have bought it at 500, now it's at 5,000, I'm late to the party. Oh, I should have bought it at 5,000, now it's 10,000, I'm late to the party. Oh, I should have bought it at 10,000, now it's 30,000, I'm late to the party. And basically just applying that same thinking to Pokemon, because probably most of the people watching this podcast, and I would argue maybe even most of the people in the hobby now in general, came in probably around like between 2018 and 2021. I would imagine like a large majority of the people in the hobby are relatively new. And when you see the price appreciation on everything, right? Rock hard, sealed, graded card, like everything, maybe you can feel a little bit like, oh man, I'm late to the party, like I missed out on the boom. And especially when you look at, even like big businesses, a lot of them did really well and saw like a huge catapult of their wealth, because just inventory they were sitting on appreciated by so much over the shutdowns and things like that. So yeah, like just what are your thoughts on, are we late to the party? Like how do you feel about that whole like, line of thinking, I guess?
I think it's kind of human nature to always feel like you missed out on that big thing that everyone else is feeling success on, especially when you're just getting started, because of the fact that you're just getting started. By the nature of that, unless you're getting started literally on day one of the first time it releases, or you're there in the development or the Kickstarter and all this stuff, it's hard for anyone to really say that they're not missing out in some way. What I think is really important to think about is kind of the flip side of that, is how you deal with it when you do, is just to basically assume that you're always going to miss out on something, and you try to plan for what you do after that. And so for me, whenever I tell myself or feel myself feeling those, ah man, I feel like I'm late to the party, I feel like it's too late, I missed the boat, all these types of situations that have negative connotations that make me feel like I don't want to go on, or it maybe makes me not want to continue with whatever business venture I was doing because I felt like everyone else already did it. I usually will tell myself that there are plenty more opportunities to come in the future. And if something was a good option before, I can just look at that thing before that was a good option, see what made it a good option, and then try to apply that to whatever comes up in the future and be there, so that then when other new people join after me and they look back, they look at that thing that I did and they think, oh, did I miss the boat? And then it applies to then what I did. So I think to a certain extent, I think we are late to the party, and I think the real answer to that, and the situation involving that, it's not a problem to be late to the party, and that's the biggest thing I think that people can kind of wrap their heads around, or maybe should try to wrap their heads around, is that you're gonna be late to the party. There's no way that you're not gonna be late to the party, but it's okay. You can't let that crippling feeling of being late and everyone else kind of having an advantage handicap you to a point where it stops you from wanting to do something, because that'll hurt you so much more in the future. Because oftentimes when we have these thoughts, it's not because that one thing was a once in a lifetime opportunity. It just felt that way because that's what's being trending, or that's what's talked about, or that's what was put in your face right at that moment. But I can guarantee you there are 10 other opportunities that were happening at that same time that people weren't talking about, that nobody jumped on, that you could probably still jump on and make a gain on, that you won't get that feeling from until it's basically too late. So it all goes into what we usually continuously talk about on the podcast, being that it's important to have your own like sense of like what you like, and have at least some sort of a backbone with what you're buying when it comes to like collecting or investing. Especially if you're speculating in something, you really need to be confident enough that other people's opinions aren't going to sway you as much that it will deter you based on like, you know, something that you think it's hard to quantify. It's hard to really articulate, but does it make sense kind of at all?
Yeah, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think kind of what you're saying is like, in the broad scheme of things, there's still opportunity, but you're going to continually be late to the party on something because there's so many different things going on at once that it's impossible for you to like be first or have exposure to literally everything. Is that kind of what you're trying to say?
And that it's okay if you are late to the
Yeah.
party,
Okay.
and that, you know, some things you can be late to the party for and you can still actually do okay on, like in the case of shiny or like VMAX Climax. After it came out, like you could have pre-ordered VMAX Climax for like $50 or $60 a box when it was coming out. Then it skyrocketed up to like $100, and then it got a reprint, and then it went down really, really far to like 40, $50 a box, and people didn't really want it. So it's just sort of, you could say you were late to the party in that early time period if you didn't pre-order it and get it for like 40 or $50 and then sell it for $100. You could say you're late to the party, or you could say, okay, I was late to the party and I could buy it at $60 and still sell it for $100, even though it's not $40, or I could pre-order it. And you can kind of make it money all the way up and then get some on the way down. There are ways that you can be late to the party and it not affect you in that negative way, even though you're not at the top. But more so, what I'm saying is that you're always going to be late to the party for something. And it's more important to not look at it that way and to look at new opportunities that you will not be late to the party for. Because everyone's late to the party for something. So, like, you can't always just say, oh, well, I would have been a millionaire if,
Bless you.
if X, Y, or Z didn't happen, or if I did this, or this in this time period. You're just handicapping yourself. You have to kind of look towards the future and say, okay, well, if that's the case back then what's going to be the case, in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a good take for sure. I think if it just depends on how you sort of like how your mindset is looking at all of it. If you just look at it as, if I just would have bought a bunch of stuff in 2015 and held through the 2016 boom and then held all the way, up until the pandemic and stuff like that, I would be a millionaire or whatever. Like that, like you said, like that can be crippling. And in a sort of, rising tide raises all ships situation, we might all be late to the party on that. Like we might never see another situation to where everything pretty much in the hobby like sees appreciation because such an influx of demand or people coming into the hobby. Like that sort of event, Black Swan event that we've kind of talked about, like that kind of might be over in the future, but maybe not. I don't know. Like it's on a long enough time frame, it's possible that stuff that we consider worthless now, or like no one's really talking about now, or cards that are $1 might be $5-10 in the future. And that if Pokemon stays strong into 2030, that stuff that we wrote off in Sword and Shield, like amazing rares or something like that, that there's such, good organic sustained growth over time, maybe. Like, but even if that doesn't happen, like that's fine, because in the grand scheme of things, like I don't really think that we are late to the, like there's so much opportunity. There's so many different things, like you said, that you're always going to miss something. But every single time you think like, oh, maybe the market isn't as strong as it was. I mean, like last year it was what, special delivery Charizard, which was like the free stonk, like everybody could make that play. There was good demand. If you got it in, you could just always make money. You could open the packs that you bought to get the promo for free, have fun. And if you did get a good condition copy and you sent it off to hit a PSA 10, like you could make, a couple $100. And then
That
this year,
and then Evolving Skies, you were literally able to buy Evolving Skies all last year at retail at MSRP, and it was already $400 when that was happening. It was just being restocked constantly. So there's plenty of licks to be had for retail like consumers.
yeah, and I mean this year, you had Van Gogh Pikachu,
Mhm.
and so like it seems like almost every year there's some sort of like Pokemon Center thing that it's just like, oh, that's gonna sell out. There's gonna and it just reminds you how crazy the demand is. And certain things have gotten tougher. Like it's not, I mean, on a business side of things, like it's not as easy to source. I wasn't in the hobby in 2014, 2015, but I know for a fact it was extremely easy to source a lot of these rare Japanese cards, Japanese exclusive promos, and they were very cheap in those time frames, and they were even cheap like at the early parts of the pandemic and stuff like that. So and things have definitely tightened up a little bit. Even like mid-era cards, like when I first mid-era was so easy to find minty. There was just a ton of it, and it's still not like the hardest thing in the world, but like it's definitely like tightened up a little bit. There's not as much of it, or maybe it's just because I'm not looking for it as much anymore. I don't know, but bottom line, like there is always going to be opportunity. It's more of a mindset thing. And to your point about like being crippled by how you think about it, I mean, I've done this with my business, right? Like I thought for a long time at the beginning of this year that I needed a distributor. And I was like, well, I'm late to the party, right? Like I wasn't at the point that I'm at now when I needed to be, when distributors were accepting online store applications. But then I look at it and I'm like, I can be successful without a distributor. And I think a lot of people think that you need these secret connections or things like that to make money or to see success, and that's just not true. It's just your mindset towards it, and if you shift your mindset and you can be open into it, and to your point about like thinking, oh, okay, well, that isn't an opportunity. I've done that a lot to where I thought, I mean, sealed product is something that I've never really like looked at because again, like I didn't have access to a distributor. I had no sort of way to really compete or have an edge in that market. And, margins are really slim now that we're not in the same sort of market climate that we were during the boom where you could buy battle styles from your distributor for whatever, 550, 580 a case and turn around and sell boxes for 150. Like we're not there. Right. And, in a lot of cases, people are breaking even or losing money on cases at the prices that their distributors are charging. But I've sort of changed my mindset on like what I can do as a business with sealed product moving forward, and what I can do maybe to make that profitable for me. But again, it's a mindset shift. Like I just thought like, oh, well, I can never get a distributor, so I can like that's just cut off to me. Like I can't make money on sealed product. So yeah, it's all in your head. It's all about how you look at things, and ultimately, like I don't know, man. It just keeps on going. It just keeps on
Yes.
going. Like
The market is so strong. Like as
so
much as we like to be like, hey, be cautious. It's so hard to say that with a straight face when it just continues to be as strong as it's been.
yeah, I mean, still because folks like I've
Obviously,
heard some crazy stuff that people
well,
do like
yes,
leveraging
obviously that.
credit cards, and I think when I was on with Jake, he was telling me that like somebody had reached out to him and said that they had like spent their college tuition money on like sealed at the top or something like that, and it's like that stuff hurts to hear. So
Yeah.
obviously like don't be
Be
doing stuff like
cautious with
that.
that type of stuff, yes,
Yeah,
but it's hard to like sit here and say like, the market's dead or dying or all these or it's not strong or all these things like, or even be bearish on like really really bad Scarlet and Violet stuff that's just sitting at like 75, $80 a box. Like you're looking at other things that collapsed 50 to 70%. Magic the Gathering boxes, other things that like are game pieces that are these are still game pieces. The Pokemon cards are, and like you're looking at all this stuff, and the bad sets in Pokemon, the worst ones, are holding basically at what the distributor price is. So it's pretty interesting to see that type of like negativity, I guess. And I obviously I've been one to we try to talk about it when we can and add some realisticness to it. But it is interesting to hear any sort of negativity because it is pretty bullish right now. I've been wrong about the
Yeah,
holidays this year. It's a stronger holiday season than I've ever seen. I
it's
thought
been
it would be
good.
weaker.
Yeah, it's been good, and I don't know. Like to your point about Scarlet and Violet, like there's the one. I think it's Paldea evolved in English, but it's got Iono and
That's a
Miriam
fire set.
in
Paldea
it.
Evolved is the best of the set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it, and
Besides
like
the
Iono is
one.
super playable, very expensive waifu. The Shiny Treasure EX just came out. That's got an Iono in it. Most expensive card in the set. I think it came out around like $440, $500 when it first dropped. I think it's down a little bit from there, but still very expensive. And I think the first PSA 10 sold for like, I don't know, somewhere between $600 and $1,000. So definitely demand. And I think like if you look at stuff like Dream League, which is like the Japanese version of Ultra Prism with the Lily, bro, Dream League was cheap. I
Yeah.
remember when I got in, like Dream League was like, I don't know, $80 to $120 a box or something. And I mean, that was like double from MSRP or whatever that it used to be for Japanese boxes. But it's like no one was really like, oh, Dream League. And then all of a sudden, we had that mini boom earlier this year. And I think Dream League got up to crazy prices, like I don't know, like $600 a box, or maybe
Yeah.
even more than that, or something like that. So
600, I saw that. Yeah.
I'm not saying that that same thing is going to happen, run out and invest now and Paldea evolved or whatever, but I don't know. Like, I just look at it and I'm just like, man, it would not surprise me that in 2025, we're doing this podcast talking about how Paldea evolved just hit like $250, $300 a box and Iono is up again. You know what I'm saying? Like, those same sort of patterns might repeat themselves. The time frames just might have been like spaced out a little bit because at the end of the day, like you have to remember when you're investing or like long-term thinking in this stuff, like the Pokemon company wants to make as much money as possible. So like if they see demand is increasing and they see booster boxes appreciating and alt arts appreciating and things like that, they're going to be like, okay, well, next time we're going to print more because they don't make money when you sell your Iono card for $500, $600, right? They make money when they sell you a booster box. So now we're in this time period where there's so much of the sealed product available, it's going to take longer to get eaten up. But
They
if
sell more booster boxes when their Iono is worth $500 though than when their Iono is worth $20. So there is an inverse.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
the relationship that a lot of people and a lot of channels just sort of neglect. But I don't think that the TPCI or other gaming companies neglect that secondary market as much as some people like to really think. I do think that they're very aware of the secondary market, and I think there's a certain benefit to having high value cards, even if they're not seeing the sales directly from those secondary markets. It's like if you have a $5 card and a $500 card, and you have the same product for the same price on the shelf. The one with the $500 card in it is going to sell out every time, and the one with the $5 card is going to sit there on the shelf, and that doesn't help them as much, even though they both cost the same. So there is some level that I think they care about the secondary market, or they should at least.
for sure. The one thing I think that you can count on into the future is human psychology continuing to remain the same. And so it's like back to the whole like, are you late to the party thing? There's a certain percentage of people, and this is just in any market. It's the same thing in stocks. This is why, like, some crazy percent, like 90+% of retail traders never make money in the stock market or whatever. It's because people don't want to buy stuff until it rips. And
Yep.
it's the same thing with like, there are so many people that are going to feel FOMO, and it might take 2 years, it might take 3 years, it might take 5 years. It might never happen. But, if things stay strong, at some point, like if Iono starts moving up, all the people that were like, oh, I was going to wait for it to crash, then they're going to start feeling FOMO and be like, oh, I have to get this, and then that pushes prices up and things like that. So I don't know, man. Like I'm definitely like cautious because it's tough to rely on, but like, yeah, I don't know. Like I've been spending a lot more than I thought I was gonna spend in Q4, and I've been loading up, man. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna take all this money off the table, and like I still am taking money off the table for sure, but I'm just like, man, like there's so many good deals right now, and I'm loading the truck up because like people don't really have liquidity. And right now you're able to catch good deals on stuff, and I think it's going to pay off in 2024. I really do. And yeah, like it freaks me out a little bit sometimes because it's kind of like jumping without knowing that there's a safety net beneath you or whatever. But like, I don't know, man. Like and I think the main thing for me that it's so hard to understand is just because I am not a collector really. Like and in my general life, like I'm very utilitarian. Like I don't have a bunch of knickknacks and like random, like if I don't absolutely need it, I just don't buy it. And it's not because I can't afford it. It's just how I am. Like I just don't have a bunch of extra, like clutter stresses me out. Like the clutter is really bad for like my mental health. So like I don't like having a bunch of like extra stuff around. I'm not a collector, and it's tough for me to understand that this just keeps on going. And then month after month, year after year, people are just plowing like hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars into this stuff, and it doesn't stop. And not only does it not stop, but in a lot of cases, there's always something in the background, whether it's a sealed product or a nice PSA 10 that appreciates in price from already being expensive to becoming even more expensive. And that's tough for me to wrap my brain around because I'm not the end consumer. If I was alongside all the people buying stuff, ripping packs, doing all this or whatever, like I would maybe understand it more. But part of me is like, when are people going to think that the music has stopped? But it never stops. It never stops. And that's crazy for me to wrap my head around. But it, you know, like the less I think about it, like the less it stresses me out, honestly. So that's kind of been my strategy, is just to kind of go with it. Be responsible with your finances and manage your cash flow as a business. But I'm just kind of at that point to where I'm like, look, dude, like, you know what your eBay numbers are, you know, like how things are going to continue. This stuff is not just going to like drop and go to zero. Not that we've ever said that it's going to go to zero or like you need to watch it or anything like that. But it's crazy, man. Like I'm continually surprised by like how strong things are and how strong things continue to be. And it's almost like, last thing, I know I've been talking for a minute, but like last thing, it's like, it's almost because it feels like it's too good to be true. Like this has been such a blessing and such a fun thing to be a part of. Like I've met a lot of cool people, and like, again, I'm not a collector, but like I still love this stuff. Like I was into all this stuff when I was a kid: Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, blah, blah, blah. To be able to turn this into a successful business and continually scale it, it seems too good to be true. And I think part of me being worried about like the music stopping is like, there's no way this lasts. Like this is so fun, you know what I'm saying? And you can make money off of it. Like that just seems crazy. Like that shouldn't be real, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't want to lose that, you know, like that would suck to lose that. And so I think that's where part of my like worry comes from, is like, all right, this is too good. Like this can't last, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I understand the sentiment to a certain extent, but that's why it's a good thing you have a podcast with a guy like me who literally lived in LGSs since I was like 8 years old. And so I've seen the beating, breathing heart of these gaming TCGs. I've seen them grow. I've seen them die. I've seen some putter out, and I've seen others continue on and persist, which makes me why I feel like I have a unique perspective on trading card games. And so with Pokemon in general, like there's such a diehard fan base. And like, even if I'm not playing it and I haven't been a player of Pokemon, I used to play it back in the day. I do understand the utility that TCGs offer. And you and I have had behind the scene conversations about this. The utility that a trading card game or a piece of cardboard offers versus the utility that a sports card offers, or a trading card game like a square card game. And those are two different things. And I know that someone like you looks at them as being very much so the same and very similar, and they're in the same lens, but they are completely different. And that's the same reason why I don't value Japanese cards the same as English cards, because it makes it different, because it suddenly doesn't become a game piece. Maybe to the Japanese people it does, to people who can read it, but it's not a game piece anymore. And even though I'm not playing that game piece, why don't I just invest in sports cards? Why am I not just buying Topps cards? And why am I going for the round corners instead of square corners if it doesn't matter? So it does matter to a certain extent, the fact that there's utility, even if no one wants to admit it, because they're all collectors, and it makes it worth more if more collectors are into it than players, because for some reason a player-based game for in 2020 and 2021 was stigmatized to being not as like good as a collector-based game, because you can't grade the stuff and make it huge premiums on flipping it. And so like the emphasis had shifted to collectors in 2021 during the pandemic because people weren't gathering and playing. But I am here to tell you that when the world ends, I will be playing trading card games in the fucking apocalypse. If you don't fucking believe me, you don't know me, and you haven't been listening to this podcast. And I am not the only one. So the fact that that exists, that sentiment exists, it means there's passion. There's a lot of passion. There are roots in these trading card games that go deeper than any down market or any content creator talking shit could ever do to damage the fabric of trading card game communities. That being said, are we late to the party? Absolutely not. Well, absolutely we are. But welcome to the fucking party, Nick. That's more so what we should be saying is, are we late to the party? Sure. But here's a fucking drink, here's a beer, and welcome. Because that's really what it should feel like for people, because it's been going on for so long. And like you said, there's a level of confidence you should be able to feel just looking at the history of how things have gone. Because if it was like, 19, and bless Gary, God bless Gary, and bless his heart, for in the 90s, when Pokemon and Magic were basically the only TCGs that existed, and Pokemon was the new kid on the block, bless Gary for putting all his money into all those vintage boxes and pushing it and grading it and putting the legwork in to make it what it is today. Because literally we wouldn't be able to have this conversation about like the markets and all this stuff if that confidence of 20 plus years, of almost 30 years of TCG history didn't exist. And so like those guys, sure, those guys in the early 90s could feel this level of like uncertain. Like I feel like they maybe weren't late to the party because they were some of the first ones to the party, but I'm sure that Gary felt he was late to the party about sports cards, and so that's why he was getting into Pokemon at the time. It wasn't because like he loved Pikachu. He might have liked Pikachu. He might have like that his kids liked it or whatever, but I don't think that he was thinking like, you know what, this Pokemon stuff, this is all for me. I love this stuff. He probably liked it enough, but I think he was probably thinking to himself, I was late to the party on all this other stuff. I know what this had going for it. I can see the future of what this could have going for it. And so I'm not going to be late to the party for this. I'm going to throw a little money in it. I'm going to see what goes. And he probably did like it at the time too. So he enjoyed it at the same time. But, it's just one of those things that I am glad that we have the podcast, because I can continuously pound the sentiment into the audience and to you and everyone else listening that TCGs have utility. TCGs have value behind what the stupid graded card market value, stupid whatever that people say the MSRP or whatever's being charged. There's value to the people who play the games, who interact with the games, who collect the games. There's value in intangible ways, and I think that's almost more valuable than like I don't know, like something that's like sanitizer or toilet paper or like a good that you need. Like, sure, that's something that's like a fungible good that you absolutely need in like real life. You need that for your everyday life kind of thing. But like, there's something to be said for like things that help keep you mentally, happy. And I think the TCGs
Yeah. I mean,
serve that and entertainment.
humans pursue art and
Yeah.
leisure, like that's what you do. And like everybody is pursuing or is trying to get rich or more successful or retire so that they can pursue leisure and consume art. Now, whether that's like visual art, whether that's like, you know, playing a video game or watching TV and hanging out with your family, or whether that's like going to watch sports, like it's all consuming art, consuming Pokemon cards, like all like eating nice food. It's all consuming art. And that's what humans are constantly working towards, is pursuing leisure and consuming. And we've done that since like like forever, right? Like that's always been the thing. Like back in the day, you know, like the rich families had like access to consuming those types of things, and the poorer people did. And that's what everybody is aimed towards. And it's, yeah, man, like it's just, it's wild. And it's funny too. Like I actually, like last night, I watched, I hadn't seen it before, but there, PokéNE, the seal dude, he was on Vice. Like they did like a little
I love Vice. That's awesome.
they did like a coverage piece on him and his wife, and this was back when he like first started the business. And it was like, you know, like right during the panorama when everything was popping off. And it was funny to me, and it kind of made me think about it with the podcast, because there was a Japanese guy, and I don't know if he was like one of his suppliers, or I think it was one of his suppliers, but they went to Japan and interviewed this guy. They blurred out his face and stuff. But the Japanese dude was talking, and he was like, you know, we've sold $1 million worth or whatever. And he's like, Pokemon was not that popular, which is interesting to me that like a Japanese person would say that, because like you guys have it on jets. So maybe
it's everywhere.
Like maybe to him, like it wasn't, but it's like, you know, relative to the US, like Pokemon, again, I don't know, like I'm not in Japan or whatever. Anyways, he was like, Pokemon wasn't as popular. Then during COVID, things became, you know, super popular. And he goes, I'm trying to sell all this before it crashes. Like it's going to crash, right? And it did kind of, but like here we are, like we hit the ground and then bounce back up like immediately. And it's just interesting that even somebody like on the ground floor in Japan was like, oh, I got to get out before all this stuff crashes. He felt like he was like late to the party, or like he needed to leave the party before the cops come, kind of, you know what I'm saying?
That was what, he wasn't late. He was there too long, is what that.
Yeah,
he's like, I've been here. There's too much implication around me. Like, too many people know me at this party.
But it's just funny because obviously, like that take hasn't really aged well, right? And it's just interesting to think. So it'll be funny in like a year, 2 years to like go back and watch clips of these podcasts and be like, and just see where things are at. I mean, obviously, hopefully, like we're going for another year, 2 years, 3 years, 5, whatever. Like, it's just interesting to see like how long is this gonna last. It'll be nuts, man. Like if things are even where they're at now in 2025, like that would be insane. Last thing I would say is like, to the point of like the tide raising all ships or stuff, it's like businesses adapt, right? And if you haven't adapted, you're gonna get left behind. Like if you were still grading, you know, first edition Nidorans or something and hitting PSA 8s, maybe you could have made some money during, you know, the boom and stuff like that. Now you're getting demolished. Yeah. So if you haven't adapted and like, as time goes on, less and less garbage is like acceptable maybe onto the market, but businesses adapt, right? Businesses every year, like, you know, part of the reason that earnings per share maybe go up, or businesses become more profitable and people value them higher, whatever, because they know how to increase profits. They know how to be more sustainable, right? Like now AI is the big thing that everybody's talking about, and how that's going to impact all these different business verticals and make all these businesses exponentially more profitable. And then they can, you know, maybe direct their employees towards doing different things that'll end up making them more profitable in the future, and have the AI do like the menial work and things like that.
We need to have an AI episode, because I could say a lot about AI, and I think we need to discuss it at length, because there's a lot about there to unpack, and I would really like to discuss that with you. So that's to come.
All right. Terminator Robots Take Over episode in the future. Look out for that. But the point I'm trying to make is like, if you're in this market as a business, or even maybe as a collector, but like somebody that's flipping or running a business or whatever, like chances are like you've adapted to survive. And as long as like you keep adapting to what works in the market, you're probably going to survive. And if you see things get dark, if you see like the windows start closing, then it's like, all right, maybe I need to slow down a little bit. Maybe I need to take stuff off the table. But at least right now, it doesn't feel like that at all.
No,
And
not at all. Not even close. Like I feel like we've talked about this in the past where like we're worried about if the market were to start coming down, if we would see the indicators and be able to get out in time. I really still feel the same way now that we used to feel and talk about, and that is this, that of all people, the people who cover the Pokemon market, like who have YouTubes, and the people who watch this podcast, all the people who are in this space will see the market coming down so much farther ahead of than the actual market or than the actual normal regular people, that we will know. The door will be, someone will be banging on the door and we will hear it. We will be right there to hear it. So I don't feel like that right now, and I haven't felt that way. There were times where I felt like we might have been moving to that direction, but I think that was maybe my overall bearishness getting into me more than it was the actual market's bearishness, because I don't think we've knocked on that door yet. So
do you want to move on to the second
yeah.
half of the topic really quick?
So as long as you've said, as long as we've,
I talked it to death. I talked it to death. My
and
bad.
I don't have anything else to say about it either. But I think that was a good topic, and I appreciate that one. So hopefully the audience did too. Leave comments down below if you have anything else to say about that particular one. But let's go on to the next. I think you guys will like this one too. So with the recent resupply of Lorcana, and also to a lesser extent some One Piece coming onto the market, a new set and everything, it leads me to want to have a discussion about what the optimal TCG print and supply strategy is. Because even with Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, which still to this day can't figure out their print to demand strategy they want to use, so people are confused. What do you think, just from the outside looking in, as a consumer and also as a seller of these things on the secondary market, what do you think you would like to see from a TCG as far as like the print supply strategy? And so just to put some context in it, this came up because Lorcana recently, the first chapter, the first booster box ever that they made, was up to $400 a booster box as of like a couple of weeks ago. Then the reprint, this really big, first big reprint that we've seen on the market, hit just about a week or so ago, right after, and it drive the prices down to now about 150, 160 bucks a booster box. So huge decreases in that, and it's simply because a huge amount of supply hit the market, and they've continued to say they're going to keep supplying the market with more and more as needed. So the strategy for something like that is very different than something like Bandai and One Piece, who has actually released recently statements saying that certain sets they had no intention of reprinting, and they were not going to meet the market's demand by just reprinting certain things until oblivion. So I'm curious what you think the optimal print or versus not print supply would be, and what your take on the whole situation is.
So I don't know, like if I sat and did the work, I could probably come up with it. But I'm just looking at like sales velocity on TCG players since the prices dropped, and the boxes are selling crazy.
They're flying. I didn't want to say too much
Yeah.
because I still want to buy more. I bought a couple and I want to buy some more before they do this. But without saying, they're flying off the shelves now.
So supply demand curve, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. But like the velocity is, it's not a situation to where the prices has dropped and nobody wants it. Like everyone is buying it. And like it'd be interesting to see, like maybe someone will make. I mean, I have to scroll down. So, I mean, I've been clicking on this for like the past 2 minutes, and I'm only on the 9th for sales on TCG Player. But since the drop off, it'd be interesting to see, like if you took a month since the drop off velocity of sales, and then compared that to a month when it was at like $400, to see how like like the price elasticity of demand, like basically is effect like people
Well, I can
want
tell you anecdotally, without that sales data, the environment, the whole, how do you say, the feeling of the community is not what you would expect. It is literal overjoyous. And so before, most of the posts in the Lorcana community were like super high prices, people trying to get, very extremely expensive prices for their very limited product, and they'd say, I know what I've got. Someone would eventually buy it, and people would get reacted. There'd be a lot of emotions involved. Huge comment section saying like, "Get out of here, scalper! I just want to play the game. Can't wait till this game just gets printed to oblivion, so that you lose your ass on that." All this negative emotion and negative connotation just
always
surrounding the fact that they can't get it and they want it, and so you would think that so that negativity. Now that the reprint has come and it's just and now instead of seeing any negativity, like people trying to sell and dump, literally I'm seeing posts of full shelves on Target, and like people are like, yes, finally, and they're like overjoyed. They're like, I'm buying as much and there's this much and there's still some left, and like people are so happy about this oversupply and they're eating it up so quickly. I haven't heard almost a single person be like, well, shoot, I can buy a whole lot more Lurkana and enjoy it. Because, like, as far as I know, even booster boxes is selling above MSRP, because MSRP is like 140, I think, or 144. And so they're selling higher than MSRP, and they get them at LGSs for like $80, I think. So imagine getting Pokemon booster boxes at like $80 or $90 and selling them for 150 and complaining about that. Like, nobody is going to complain about that. A store would love to get a huge stock of Pokemon of whatever the most recent Paradox Rift and sell it for 150 a box, and then order 10 more and do it again like you can do with Lorcana. So oversupply in the case of Lorcana, in my opinion, is not a problem. But what about in general? Maybe not simply with Lorcana alone.
Wait,
But,
we can go to Jen, but real quick, I just looked at the new the Rise of the Floodborn. So it's scraping the Lumineers Trove and the Disney 100 thing they just did. But in the past 90 days, there's over 2,000 sold for Rise of the Floodborn booster box. So like,
those are over $200 still.
Yeah, that's at like $200 sealed. So, and again, like it's scraping other things as well too. I'd have to like, don't include this. Well, anyway,
and that set's not as good as the first set. It's not nearly as good, and it's just it's just less supply because it just came out. It's newer. It's the reason why. It's crazy. But that's a really good look at supply demand and what that can do.
Yeah, I mean, people want it. Like again, it's not something that I'm really like involved in or whatever. But like when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it's strong. Like it's definitely crushing for sure. As far as like the topic on the opposite. So okay, two things. One, you have a game like, and we could pull data to look at like the market cap or whatever. But like you look at two different sides of the spectrum. Flesh and Blood, heavily playability focused. You got the cold foils. Some people collect them. Some people want them graded, but like primarily player focused, right? Successful for what it is, for the size of the TCG, for like, not having a famous IP attached to it, just kind of like coming out of nowhere over the past few years. Still fairly strong. Rudy talks good about it. I don't know if he does a lot with it, or I don't really track the market very much, but I know from what I've heard that it's got a strong community going of players. So, but it's capped maybe because it's so player focused. Then on the other side of that, you've got Weiss, which if you play Weiss, don't get mad at me, but Weiss, you could argue primarily, and I would say the card prices reflect that. What holds value in Weiss are the SPs, and that's pretty much it. And usually it's like waifus. So that to me is an indicator of a market that's primarily driven by collectors, very little playability interest. So Weiss can be successful in its own right and continues to release sets similar to Flesh and Blood, but they're capped. You look at like what the big three have, maybe Magic less so, outside of vintage Magic. I know there's a lot of people that like to collect vintage Magic. But the reason Pokemon is number one outside of like the IP being so popular and things like that, when we're just talking about like a trading card game, part of the reason that And part of the reason Lorcana is doing good, I think, is because in One Piece, like look at how successful One Piece is. One Piece is a really good game. If you listen to like Mason and a lot of these other people talk, they're like, well, you know, One Piece, there's a lot of players showing up to play One Piece. But people want the cards. People want the Luffy, the Nami, the Zoro and Sanji. Like they want and they want the chase cards.
Well, is
out of
One
these
Piece,
sets,
do you
right?
know if One Piece is like printed heavily, or from everything I know about One Piece, it's extremely limited in print and extremely hard to get.
I don't track it very much. Like I've looked at it in Japanese. It's a little bit cheaper in Japanese. The sets are the same, but like the boxes are cheaper in Japanese. But it's the point I'm trying to make is like the reason that One Piece is kind of catapulted past like a White Schwartz or a Flesh and Blood is because it has both. The same thing with Pokemon, like it has both. Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic still primarily player based, but like Yu-Gi-Oh more than Magic still has like a decent sized collector following. So it's getting both of those. Like if you just go the game piece route, like
so you need to be a balance, is what you're sort of getting at.
Yeah, it has to be a balance, and like what exactly that balance is tough. But like if you just go like these are only game pieces, like if you only go that route, it's gonna die or it's gonna be capped. It's not gonna get as big as you know it has potential to be. Like you have to have collector demand. Like
you have to have a chase. You have to have a reason.
I think that both individually can keep a game like alive, but like collectors are what drive prices.
Well,
because
can you rely on your print supply being low to provide that chase, or do you have to rely on putting really cool stuff in the box and making it really hard to pull? Because I actually think that this conversation is going to lead really well into our invest, flip, skip conversation we're going to have because of what we're talking about now. But there's definitely like different philosophy there, because like for Lorcana, for example, they are going to print the living bejesus out of it. And they've stated as such. They've never said otherwise. They said they're going to continue to print it and bring it to market as long as their demand. But they made in the game itself cards that are really hard to pull. You get like 2 per case or 1 per case. So like enchanted cards, like 1 in 96 packs, basically. So those are pretty tough to pull when you're only getting 24 packs per box. So it's not even 1 per box. It's 1 per case, basically. So their strategy is to print it to the living ground because they believe in the supply. They need that supply to be so high because they have the IP to lean on. So their strategy, I would say, is to oversupply and really heavily rely on the market basically eating it up and their IP, and that ultra rarity card being the thing that people want to chase, and all the rest just being worth nothing, basically. Because they have also foils in Lorcana, but they're not really that rare. You get 1 in every pack. It's like a reverse foil in Pokemon. I like them better than that, but they're not really that special. And then you have something like the other side of it, Bandai, that, like I said, unless I'm wrong about this, correct me in the comments. I know they have restocked 1 or 2 sets before, but they're small restocks. And they've specifically said that with Bandai, some of these sets, they're not going to reprint, even though the demand is like this. It's only a year or 2 old, and they're like $500 a booster box. They're not going to reprint the first set, I don't believe. And they've said as such, and they don't have plans to. And so, like, it seems like they're sort of relying less so on their IP, even though they have that big IP, and they're more relying on that crazy market ferocity that's being whipped up into a frenzy by that undersupply. Because as far as I know, game stores can't all get as much One Piece as they want. And the same is true for Lorcana, but now you can get a little more than you could, and they've said that they're going to continue. So the strategy is too different. Then you have something like Magic, right? And Magic is one of those that's a great one to talk about because they've been doing it for so long, and they never, ever will make statements on how much they're going to print or whatever. They make vague statements about how much overall they printed, and like they give you like overall kind of vague things, but they don't tell you exact print runs. And that's part of the speculation of Magic, is they want you to speculate on how much or how little there is, I think, because it does drive their sales. Like this new set, for example, the Ixalan set, I think, that came out, if they overprint this set, it'll be all bad because a lot of people are speculating it's gonna be an underprinted set because all the rest were so overprinted before and they had to correct. So it's like all this nuance with that. So sorry for like derailing a little bit, but like the strategy, that's what I'm mostly, not necessarily the IP as much, because I mean they all kind of have, the IP is a whole nother situation, but the strategy is, I think is interesting because like the supply strategy can either make or break your game. Because you would think that if you got it in front of more people playing it, that's the best course of action for your game to take, because that's what's going to get people into it. But if you're only a collector based game and your people aren't playing your game very much, you probably don't want to get it in front of as many people as you can, because that's going to devalue it. Nobody needs it for like playing. So like you don't want it in everyone's hands. You only want some people to have it, the right people. So then they hype it up and people want the boxes you did make so that you can, sell them. So I mean, I don't know what the right is, but I'm having a conversation about it really.
No, yeah. I just did some math really quick. So this is compared to the highs, going off TCG player prices, assuming that these are real sales and things like that. So the booster boxes are down 62% from the highs, but the chase card, the Elsa, is only down 40%, which is still like
Significant,
substantial. Like
yeah.
it's from that, but again, that's from the high, like the absolute high, and that was like no one thought that they were going to be able to get Lorcana when it first came. Like everybody was just like, oh, I want this, foaming at the mouth for it or whatever. So to
They
me,
still
like
are.
that,
I sell out of my Lorcana. I sold 2 booster boxes at my show of Lorcana like within the first hour. It was insane.
yeah, like to me, yeah, I think it's good that they're getting it into more. Like I in the long term, like I don't think it's going to affect. I don't know. Like it's better that they get it into more people's hands, I think, ultimately, than, and again, like the chase card is still 454. I think the last sale on TCG Player is 474.
It hasn't
That's an
dropped that much
expensive.
then. It's
Yeah,
really
like
stayed pretty consistent. Yeah, because
that's
it's
an
been around
expensive
hovering that
card.
$500 for a long time.
Yeah, that's an expensive card. So yeah, like to me, like they've got both going for them. Like they've got collector demand because Disney people are nuts, and then there's a certain percentage of people that seem to be enjoying playing the game as well. So I think you have to do a little of both. It's weird when you get into these like smaller communities. They're very, very protective, especially like you want like dead TCGs and stuff. People are like, these are not meant to be graded and all that kind of stuff, because they don't want to see prices go up on things. But bottom line, like, I don't know, man, like cool cards, regardless of the IP, people are going to want to grade them. People are going to want to collect them. Not everybody is a player. I think playability is sort of like a good foundation to have. But if you really want things to be successful, you have to have the collectability aspect to it. And I think Pokemon does a good job with it in the sense that they'll make the Iono. There's a 50-cent version of the Iono that does the exact same thing. So you can build a deck for an affordable price. But if you want to be a collector, you want to be a stonker, or if you want to bling out your deck, you can have like the $500 version, right? Or I don't even know what Iono's at now in English, but I think they have figured out over their 25, 27 years, I guess now, of doing it. Like Pokemon has figured out how to do it the best, because players are like still coming in. Like Hawaii Worlds, I bet, will be massive. Like Hawaii Worlds will probably be crazy.
I want to
So
be there, man. I want to be there. I'm thinking about it.
it'll be a good one. But then to the same to the same token, like the collectability is probably at an all time high, even if prices aren't at an all time high. They seem to be selling more cards than they've ever sold, and yeah, so like I don't know what the exact. I just know that you have to have both. And when I see people yell like these are only game pieces, it's just like, dude, come on, bro. Like that's just goofy to me. You gotta be able to respect what people want to do. Some people want to have a Black Lotus maybe to like play in a deck. Some people want to have it because it's a historic piece of TCG history, and you gotta respect that. Like a lot of the time, like players and collectors will argue, but most of that is fueled by money, right? Because if you put those people in the same room and just were like talk about Magic, but don't talk about them, like those people will get along. It's all about the money. And it's like players getting mad that things become expensive, and it's a weird, entitlement thing to it. Like I'm entitled to be able to buy it. It's like it's weird, but ultimately, like it's all around money. And if you remember during the boom, the kind of content that was being made on YouTube was all the scalpers are horrible, businesses are horrible, blah blah. Now that like things are more, now that people can, and again, like it probably happened with Lorcana, like you were just saying, like people were pissed off, like get out of here, scalper on Facebook groups. Now that it's available, people are stoked. Yeah. The same thing with Pokemon. Like no one makes scalper content anymore in Pokemon because you can't do it. But as soon as people were making money, oh, now you're a horrible person. It's like it's just weird, with that.
That used to be the hottest content, man. That was literally that's the most reactions in Facebook posts, and now it's like, what are you doing? Like, who cares?
Yeah, like if you're mad, like no one is talking about that anymore. It's all about the money. It's all about people like being mad that they can't afford something or feeling like they're entitled to be able to buy something for a certain price. But bottom line, like that's just not how these markets work. And when you can get things for decent prices, when you have access to Pokemon product on your shelves, when you have access to Lorcana product on your shelves, enjoy it, because it might not always be like that, right? Like it seems, at least like right now, especially on the English side of things, Pokemon's printing things into the ground and it's readily available, but it might not always be that way. And
today,
you don't want to.
Evolving Skies booster boxes dropped on the Pokemon Center for a restock, and people got cases. I saw someone in the Discord who had a case of booster boxes of Evolving Skies. So it's crazy out here. It is crazy out here.
Pokemon is the #1 seal investor in the world. They're out here just like sprinkling a little. It's funny, man. Like that would be like completely speculation, but it'd be interesting to think like, what is Pokemon sitting on? Like, is Pokemon sealed investing? You know what I mean? Like, is this stuff actually lost in a warehouse? Or are they like
and to come out at the end of the year? Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe Pokemon's got tons of maybe Pokemon's got stuff from like Black and White era that they're just like, I don't know, maybe.
Dude, if my distributor has stuff from Black and White, which he does, I know Pokemon does. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I don't know like what channels they would sell that through, or like, but it's, I don't know, man. Like it's crazy and it's also probably like a test that they do on market. Like they'll drop Evolving Skies and they'll be like, how much gets evaporated in 10 minutes?
How many of these boxes sold in how many fractions of a second? Oh, there was only 3 fractions a second this time. Last time it was 2 fractions a second. Looks like the market's dying. All right, Jim Bob, let's up the sales a little bit.
I don't even know how people get that stuff, dude. Like, I mean, I'm not in like Discords or anything like that, or on Twitter.
I am in Discords, and I saw the drop and I couldn't get it. It's crazy. I don't know how people get it. I think it's bots. I don't know. Or people literally live on the website and they're constantly refreshing it. And like, props to you if you're able to do that. But like, dude, I don't got that kind of. I don't care that much. I don't have that much time. Like,
the only time I really took was like when they did the restock on the Van Gogh stuff.
Yeah,
I was trying to get that, but like I was maybe on the computer for like 10 minutes.
I was already at my desk at that point, but I spent extra time like watching. I think there's a live. Dan was live at that time. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna watch the live, interact with the chat, and wait for the Van Goghs to kind of drop and kind of try to get my things. And that's where I got all mine. So like, I'm the same way. Like I try not to like spend the time waiting on that kind of stuff. But if I'm there, if it's something that I really want, and it's something that I think that it's like announced and you have an opportunity, which honestly for the Pokemon company, I know they got a lot of like flack for the Van Gogh thing, but the re-release, what they did for it was up for several hours and you had plenty of time. They announced it. It felt like a really good situation with what they did. Like the first initial wave at the museum sold like that, and the stuff on the first website where you could order anything and get one with every single item you got, that sold out way too quickly. I thought that was horrible. That was a bad release. But then after the fact, the statement they made a week later, they had the re-release. It was up a few hours. People were really questioning. It got down to like $50 on eBay per for the promos at that time period. People weren't really sure in those few hours what was going to happen. I know now people are like, it was not enough time. But like at that, people were hemming and hawing. I did 6 of them, and I was like, you know what? 6 is enough for me. I could have probably had 10. I didn't, because they were down to $50 on eBay, and you had to spend $30 to get it. So I was like, okay, this is probably going to be a $20 or $30 card. I got my 5 or 6. Fine.
Dude, and the weirdest thing about it was that people were rooting for it to go down. They're like, oh, yeah, you guys are dumb for trying to get that card. It's going to be a $5 card. It's like, why are you rooting against it? Like, that was the weirdest thing to me. It was like
weird
why?
takes all around. It was really weird takes all around that whole Pikachu. And so, like, yeah.
People want to be the cool guy contrarian. And it's just like, dog, just chill. Like, just admit that you were mad that you couldn't get it and that it was free money. Or if it's not your thing, fine, it's not your thing. But like, don't dookie on other people for being into it and be like, yeah, you guys are losers. This card's going to 0. Like, that is so weird to me. If anything, if you're a fan of the hobby of Pokemon, like, you should be happy that that kind of stuff is happening. It might hurt in the short term because it's like, oh man, I couldn't get that card.
I think it was because everything else was kind of doing really poorly at the moment, and 151 hadn't really took, or it was out in Japan, but it was really hard to get. It was very expensive, so people didn't have anything to latch onto at that moment. And so I think that Van Gogh Pikachu, it was just a really big, it was a moment in the hobby, you know what I mean? That's kind of what it felt like. I do think it would have done the same thing, even if it was at a different point in the hobby, probably, but it wouldn't have been the same reactions and the same weird takes, probably. But yeah, we have a good one. We have a good one from for our next section here. So unless there's anything you want to add onto the optimal TCG print supply, I guess I'll finish off and I'll kind of say something about it before we move on, just to kind of put my last word in. But you have any last words here?
No, I think we're good.
Cool. Well, I personally think on this situation, the optimal TCG print supply strategy, I do think that, like you, it should be somewhere in the middle. But I think that it would probably want to err on the side of going over rather than under, because even though overprinting has the potential of maybe crashing a market temporarily, if what you're overprinting ever had any real demand and it wasn't just propped up by hype or any sort of like any inorganic demand, then that little bit of oversupply will eventually get eaten and it will eventually be needed. And as long as you don't then continue to destroy it, and you you oversupply on that first restock and you give the market what it needs and you listen to it, you let it kind of go down a little and you're like, okay, well, that's what happened. And you don't then keep on doing it. I think that the optimal print supply strategy is to figure out your sweet spot and then maybe do one release again as a game as needed, or maybe multiples if you have a long period of like playability or what the rotation is, and you just basically monitor it. So I'm going to take the easy way out and say it's somewhere in the middle, but erring on the side of oversupply rather than undersupply, because I think it's more important for the market to get it if you have a strong IP or a strong game or strong whatever, that you have something you have confidence in, than it is to rely on the inorganic pump that is like low supply, high demand because you can't get it and it's just like artificially pumped. That's my take on it. And that's why I think that Flesh and Blood and other things like Pokemon move away from the first edition stamp and go towards an unlimited printing, because even though it does sort of have that collector base, that sort of like limited edition feel, it doesn't do you any favors when it comes to like printing, print supply, and monitoring control and being able to have that secondary market under your umbrella and under wraps. So I think that's a big reason why they get away from that, and we don't see a lot of first editions anymore. Cool.
Yeah.
So Next section here, big shout out to Antonio Rodriguez on Retrospect's last video on his channel. So we did the podcast on a live for the first time on Retro's channel, and it went really well. We loved all the engagement you guys had. Thank you so much to everyone who came over there and supported. If you were in the live, great, we appreciate that. But if you just dropped a comment down below, we really appreciate that too. And one of those comments we really enjoyed was from Antonio Rodriguez. So his invest, flip, or skip was really thought-provoking. And the only thing about it is I did make one small adjustment because I wanted to kind of, and I hope, Antonio, you don't mind this, but I wanted to sort of make a little more sense for like how I could comprehend and digest it. So Antonio had this idea for invest, flip, or skip, and we're going to go with it. He said either PS3 or PSA 10 Pokemon alternate arts or Galarian galleries, PSA 10 DBS God rares, and PSA 10 Yu-Gi-Oh 25th quarter century rares. And so he gave us the three big games and three of the ultimate rarities. With Pokemon, he had specifically said originally Galarian Gallery, but I think what he was sort of getting at was like the alternate arts or the full arts or the higher rarity of Pokemon, because that's kind of what these other two tiers were for DBS and Yu-Gi-Oh. So that's why we made the slight adjustment to include alternate arts too. But I really liked it. So thanks, Antonio. We appreciate you. We're going to go with this one. And I'm going to need Nick to explain to me what Yu-Gi-Oh 25th anniversary or 25th quarter century rares are, though, because while I'm familiar with these other two, very familiar with the other two, I'm not, as you guys probably know, as familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh! So for the sake of this question, I do want a little preface by Nick. So I'm going to let him take it away and kind of take the first act. I'll let him answer first, but I'm going to need him to also clarify what these things are.
So quarter century rares like Yu-Gi-Oh or I guess this year actually is Yu-Gi-Oh's 25th anniversary. So they released Yu-Gi-Oh is very heavy on reprints, right?
I know that, yeah. So
yeah, like they'll reprint the same, but what gives different ones value is how it's released, what product it came in, but also like the kind of rarity it has, and the kind of rarity relates to the type of foiling it has. The lettering on the actual card can be foiling, but also like the card has like a foiling overlay to it. So, ultra rare is like a flat foiling, and then you've got your secret rare, which is more prismatic. So quarter century rare, the borders are hollow, and it's got this like crazy prismatic sort of like overlay to the card. It's the same arts. In some cases, like they're still releasing new sets that have quarter century rares in them. So it's just like the style of foiling. But
is it the highest rarity tier, like the highest of them that you can pull from those?
Yeah. As of right now, it's the highest rarity. Not exactly sure on pull rates per box, but it is the highest rarity tier, and they reprinted all of the I guess you would call it like the first, like the WotC era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like it's called like the Duel Monsters era in Yu-Gi-Oh! They reprinted all those boxes with like slightly different sort of like gloss and stuff to the cards. But those have like 25th century rares of certain cards in the, there's like an anniversary collection box basically to where you could get like basically all the main characters like the Egyptian gods, Red Eyes, Blue Eyes, Dark Magician, in the quarter century rare potentially. So yeah, that's the rundown on the quarter century rares for sure.
And I thought that was kind of the case with it, but just not being as familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, I needed to hear it from the horse's mouth because I know that's much more your specialty than mine. But the other ones I'm pretty familiar with. Like, I think the God Rares is like a case hit sort of thing. So you get like one per case. So they're really rare. I think out of all the rarities, the God Rares from DBS in this, these three will probably be the highest rarity tier. Am I wrong? Yeah.
Yeah, they might even be more than pull rates for. I think it depends on the set, but it looks like one of the sets. I'm just pulling this off Google. one per 2 to 3 booster cases. So
Okay, so it's
in a
even
case,
higher than 1 per case. Yeah,
yeah,
or lower. Yeah.
a case in DBS is 12 boxes, so it's anywhere from like 1 in 24 to 36 boxes. So pretty
Isn't
rare.
DBS Bandai? DBS is Bandai, correct? Okay.
DBS is Bandai.
Okay. So I
So
really like this because we have 3 different companies. We have Bandai represented with DBS, we have Konami with Yu-Gi-Oh, and then we have Pokemon with the Pokemon here. So I really like that all 3 of these are made by different companies because they have very different like fundamentals and how they release. It's a really great question, especially considering what we talked about for the rest of the podcast. This is a really, really good one. So yeah, so I'm definitely curious to hear what you say about these 3.
do you wanna go first and see
Since
what
I don't know what they are, I will go first so I don't get jaded by your answer on it, or I don't know as much about the Yu-Gi-Oh ones. I'll just kind of give my take about them. Because I think it may surprise you as far as like where my answer will be with this particular one. You know, I've always been really negative about Yu-Gi-Oh. It's nothing personal about the art or the cards or the release or anything about the investability or anything like that, really. It's just from my own experiences from when I was younger in my local game shop and like where I played competitively. Like, I never had a good experiences with Yu-Gi-Oh players. So I
I
sort of
think if
avoid.
you watched the anime and played the original format of the card game, I think you would really enjoy it. It's
Yeah, so
definitely
it's not about the anime. I've never even tried that, so it had nothing to do with that. So I totally agree with that. So that being said, I've actually come around on Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit more in the last say 10 years than I had ever before that. And what that means is I actually see a road forward for Yu-Gi-Oh. And this involves more than just me talking with Josh, my friend, the Green Shiz, who's also into Yu-Gi-Oh, and seeing him get into it and listening to him talk about the scarcity and rarity. But like a lot of those cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, mean a lot to a lot of people. And while they don't mean anything to me because I never played the game, a game that's really kept up their player base with a good app and with there's a lot of tournaments and a lot of competitive play over the years has always been Yu-Gi-Oh. And I have a lot of respect for those types of games. And even if it's begrudgingly, I'm not willing to give it out willingly all the time. I still have respect for those types of games. And so Yu-Gi-Oh is actually falling under that category for me more and more lately. And it always has been about 3 to 5 years behind Pokemon as far as when it came out, when its demographic, it's like sort of when it became popular, it was after Pokemon a little bit. So I see it as lagging behind Pokemon at most about 5 years. So we're at that 5 year point where I start to feel like we're going to start seeing the same types of trends we saw in Pokemon in early 2019 start sort of trending over to Yu-Gi-Oh if they continue to do good things like put out these god rares, put out these 25th anniversary collection boxes to get people talking about it, do these reprint sets that people seem to love. And as long as like the player base continues to do what they've always been doing, and I don't see anything changing with that, like Yu-Gi-Oh has a lot more investability in than I would have ever thought in the past, or even in the recent past, because I know that they just reprint the hell out of everything. So having value there is harder than something like Pokemon. But I think it'll eventually get there. That being said, the situation with Konami is very different than the situation with Bandai. And Bandai is the creators of DBS and the God Rares. And while even though I feel like with the highest rarity tier being at 2 cases, 3 cases, sometimes for some of these God Rares, you could say the worst case scenario is 3 cases per God Rare. I still think that to me, as someone who's in this for the long haul, I don't like Bandai. I'm sorry, Bandai. We're never going to get a sponsorship on this particular podcast for Bandai because I've never liked how they handle releases for games. I've never liked how they handle reprints. I've never liked how they handle anything involving their TCGs. Maybe their video games are different. Maybe, there's things that they do with other, like, it's different for other stuff. Maybe the older stuff they do, like that stuff. I just have never liked it. It's too uncertain. And so I would personally never invest in Bandai because of that. And so DBS that falls under that category. And while I love Dragon Ball, I love Dragon Ball Super. I don't love Dragon Ball. I love Dragon Ball Z. That's more my whole thing. Dragon Ball was not really as and I
Did
wasn't
you
into
watch
it.
DBZ? I
Yeah,
didn't
all
know.
of it. All of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're
And
just a hater?
I'm
Or
not a
you were
hater. I'm just like
okay.
it's not the best anime that I watch. Not even close. So it
It's not
doesn't
the best
deserve to be.
anime, but like the world building and the art and I don't know, man. Like it just kind of it hits for me. I love DB.
I used to come home. Listen, I used to rush home from school every day after school and try to get there for the next episode to watch Goku going Super Saiyan against Frieza. Like I was there for the Cell games. I was there when Goku went Super Saiyan for the first time on television in the U.S. I was there. All right, but it just
don't cite the ancient magic to me, which
exactly.
or whatever that meme is.
Yeah, or like the Lord of the Rings meme or whatever. Like I was there when the weakness of men fell, or like some shit. But but that being said, like Dragon Ball Super, while it has such a strong IP and it has such strong fundamentals behind like how historic it is, and like it's been in so many different card games that have failed, and it hasn't succeeded in so many that I have such a hard time believing it has any legs that unfortunately I'm gonna have to put Dragon Ball Super as a flip in this one. Or I'm sorry, a skip in this one.
Okay,
skip.
okay.
No, yeah, I think no, it is skip. Yeah, it's Dragon Ball Super is a skip in this one because I hate Bandai. Now, what may surprise you is Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not going to surprise you. It's not going to be my invest. Pokemon's my ride or die. Pokemon's invest, but I do believe that now and in the next year or two is potentially the time period that Yu-Gi-Oh! Flipping opportunities may be starting to be built, because it rests in that 3 to 5 year time period. So I might say flip with a little tiny asterisk next to flip with Yu-Gi-Oh! In that what I mean by flip is different than what I usually mean by flip. Usually when I say flip, I mean immediate flip, like buy it in and out the door as quickly as possible. In this case, I just want to say I would buy it now when I think the lows are probably happening. And I would probably try to throw it in my closet for a year and really hope that what I think is going to happen. Because without knowing anything, I'm not going to do this because I'm not a Yu-Gi-Oh guy. But just time frame wise, it feels like it's that time frame. And if the market does what could happen for the market and it picks up, then it would really correspond to the big growth that Pokemon had. So my flip for Yu-Gi-Oh is going to be a slight hold then flip. I'm sorry if that doesn't count, but if that's like cheating or something, and then easy, invest in Pokemon. It's the best thing. So I mean, in my opinion, if anyone says Pokemon's not the best card game, I will come on my podcast. Let's argue.
All right, so I'm the same with the answers, but for different reasons. I'm skipping DBS because I don't think the steam is there anymore. It doesn't really seem like people are hyped on DBS. I like DBZ. I mean, you see, like I got more DBZ up here than Pokemon. Like I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. Liked Super as a show, enjoyed that. Excited for Daima when that comes out. I'm a huge Akira Toriyama stan in general, but I don't think the heat is really there. I think that I don't know. DBS has always been the card game has always been kind of mid to me. The cards just like don't really do it for me. I like Super Dragon Ball Heroes, which is like a Japanese arcade. It's called like an ACG. It's an arcade card game. I like a lot of that stuff more than DBS. The rarity's there. I just don't think that enough demand is there. The one thing I do like about DBS is those signature cards that they did, where they had like the voice actor signature on the card, and those were kind of like the highest rarity when DBS first came out.
Those were so hype. They were so hype and so expensive. I know they've come down significantly, and that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, but I really like the art on those cards a lot too. So that's why I'm skipping the DBS. Yu-Gi-Oh! Flipping Yu-Gi-Oh! The 25th. Surprisingly, like so a long time ago I did a live with Jake Smith and Ernie, and we opened some of those 25th boxes on my channel, and I got lucky. Like I pulled a Relinquished and a Blue Eyes out of my packs, so I got very lucky. But I think I pulled Obelisk, because you're guaranteed one quarter century rare of I think it's like out of 9 cards or 12 cards in those 25th collector things, whatever they're called. Anyways, the quarter century rare I got was Obelisk, and that graded a 10. The boxes at that time were like $25. They probably still are, because that's just kind of how Yu-Gi-Oh works. And if you grade a 10, I mean, I listed Obelisk, I want to say for $89.99, and it sold like in an hour. Liquidity on that stuff has been pretty good because it is the main characters. Yu-Gi-Oh is harder to 10 than Pokemon, but I imagine that buying like cases of those 25th anniversary boxes and cracking them, breaking them down, grading the quarter century rares is probably still plus EV. So that's why I'd be flipping that. I would say invest in Yu-Gi-Oh, but I think that where value can be found in Yu-Gi-Oh is in different stuff. I don't think the modern stuff, for the prices of what you can get some of this older stuff for, I think that that's where I would be sticking money for like an investment or a long-term sort of flip. I mean, even in English, right? I think that vintage Dual Monster era Ultimate Rares, which are only available in Japanese, I think those might potentially have some investment potential. But I think anything past Dual Monsters era, so like your GX era is what it's called, that stuff in English is still cheap, really cheap, relative to like the pops, how rare it is, how tough it is to grade, the box prices, blah blah blah. So that's where I would be sticking money if I were going to speculate to flip or invest with Yu-Gi-Oh. And then as far as investing in Pokemon goes, I just think a lot of stuff is cheap right now. I think like as a collector, like I mean, I just pulled it up again. Sylveon, not the most popular evolution, but low list for what I think is low list for a Sylveon VMAX Altar is $179.99 or best offer. So you could probably get that for like $150 or something. The boxes are $450. You know what I'm saying? Like $150 Altar of an evolution seems pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And I know the pops are massive, but like
That's
kind of
why I
stuff,
invest. That's why I say invest,
yeah,
because it
like
seems cheap for how hard it is to pull for a lot of alt
yeah,
art. Some are $10 in alt art. So like, and it's just the ultimate rarity, and it's the easy, and Pokemon is just the GOAT, you know. So I'm with you on that one.
yeah. It just seems cheap to me.
I want to go touch base on, since we agree on all three, but for some different reasons, about the God rares though. So do you think that there's a chance that maybe I are very wrong about DBS in the future?
They're expensive. Like, don't get me wrong, they're expensive. Like, they're not cheap.
Even for like a game that doesn't have much steam and everything, the fact that they're that hard to pull, and it's such an IP. Like, look at things like that you collect, like you collect Score, right, or like DBS, or
Like a
like,
little bit. This is probably like the only thing I collect. Like
okay,
this to me, like I'd be very surprised if anybody ever found this card in this condition ever again. Like now it, there's probably 100 people in the world, 200 people in the world that would even pay what I think it's worth. So it's not like the most liquid thing in the world, but with the issue with the God rare too, like the Goku one is a reused art. Like it's an art that's been used a lot.
so
So
even with that ultra rarity, you just think the art may be holding them back potentially, because it's just kind of
yeah,
like
I think there's other places to stick money in Dragon Ball that make more sense. Again, like they have value. Like they're
for sure,
expensive
yeah,
cards. Like they're like
couple $100, right?
$1,000. Yeah, they're like $1,000 raw. I think some of the other, maybe the Vegeta one is more expensive or what. Like they're not cheap cards. I just like I'm not investing in those cards, and I don't think that The other issue with Dragon Ball is it's had so many iterations of card games.
That's my problem with it. Is
So
like
it's like,
which one do you invest in? Like which one of the failed Dragon Ball do you put your money in if you like Dragon Ball? So
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
also
like,
not willing to say that the newest God rares, even with their crazy rarity, it's enough for me to be like, all right, the other fundamentals don't matter, and so I really like that one.
yeah,
Um,
and like just what I've kind of noticed from being in the DBZ collecting community is that the whales tend to like stuff like this. Like if they have money and they're a big like DBZ collector, they tend to like the niche, hard to find Japanese stuff. Score in general is not, it's more of a conditional rarity thing. Like
okay.
like when Score first came, like when Score first started popping off, it seemed like things were rare because there just wasn't a lot of volume happening. So there
Kinda like
wasn't a lot of sales
Naruto,
volume.
like the Naruto card
For
game.
sure.
Yeah.
But then once prices started popping off and a few people started grading cards and then selling them for these insane premiums, all of these cards, like you go on Popo's now on Facebook, Popo's Wonder Emporium, which is like the DBZ.
Yeah, I've been
Like,
in there for hella years. Yeah, that one's
yeah,
hella
so if
good.
you go on there now, like you can't, I mean, you scroll for 2 minutes, you'll find like ultra rares. Like it's not, they're not hard to find anymore. There's certain promos that are very difficult to find that rarely come
The
up. Like,
champions drills and those types of
yeah,
things.
like I have one called Victorious
Yeah.
that I have listed for I think like $600 in an 8, and I've had people like lowball me and stuff, and I'm just like, I'll just sit on it because I know how hard that card is to find now in decent condition. It's like, all right, dude, like go find another one then. Like you're not going to, you know. So stuff like that is a little bit harder to get, and because like the art's good, it's a popular character, stuff like that, it holds some value, but it's yeah, it's just not that rare at all. Like it just there's it's more of a conditional rarity thing. Score's cool. I like it. It's not I'm not really like super bullish on Score. Liquidity in Score is ass. Like it is not very liquid at all. Like and prices have come down pretty substantially on that. I'm also not entirely convinced that that's going to be the TCG or like the DBZ cards that like are what people go to for like this is the DBZ investable. Like there's so many other things in Dragon Ball that I think have more value, especially like I don't know, just like older Japanese stuff, phone cards, different things like that that are way more rare, have better like fundamentals. So yeah, I don't know. Again, like I'm more of a Dragon Ball fan than I am of Pokemon. And I wish I could do more with like Dragon Ball cards and make it make sense as a business, but it just doesn't. It's a liquid. Um, it's just it's not really worth my time. It's more like a labor of love type thing. I enjoy it, but it's like my time is better spent flipping Pokemon, and my money is better spent flipping Pokemon. The DBZ stuff is just kind of like something to keep you interested and excited. It just doesn't have like the same liquidity. And I think that if DBS died like next year, I'm not convinced that the God rares are gonna like do anything crazy. They may not like drop 50% in value, but I don't really see them going anywhere in the short term. Like I think the hype around them has kind of like died down a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I could be completely wrong on that, but that's just sort of like my general feeling. The other thing about DBZ2 is it's kind of a Weiss situation to where like tens don't really matter as much. You have to like black label to get like a crazy premium. Again, if you pull a God rare and you PSA 10 it, you're getting like thousands of dollars. But if you black label it, like you might get like $5,000 to $10,000. You know what I mean? So that's another thing because DBS cards and Super Dragon Ball Hero cards are such good quality. They tend very easily. People tend to go. It's the same thing with Weiss. Like PSA 10 Weiss doesn't really hold a. Even BGS 10 Weiss doesn't really hold a premium. It's you have to black label to really make like it makes sense as far as like a premium and things like that. So, but they'll pay. Like DBZ people will pay. Like they'll pay $1,500 for a $200 card that black labels, for whatever reason. And I think that that's just kind of like a flex culture type
I think that high value grail kind of card thing and black label culture is more of a thing in DBS and Weiss than it is in the other ones. So I really like this question. So I want to say thanks again to Antonio, because I think that we got some good mileage out of this one. And I know we probably took it a little bit of a different way, but I like the way that it went. And it's interesting we agree on this one, because we don't always agree exactly. But I think that in this one, we're pretty much across the board. The Yu-Gi-Oh thing, though, I do think that because I don't know what these cards look like, I obviously can't give as good of an answer about the Yu-Gi-Oh, but I do think that the majority of what I said still holds true. Is that I think it'll have its day. I think it's going to have its day sooner rather than later. I think it's around the corner. It hurts me. It pains me to say that a little bit.
Last thing, real quick, like last thing I'll say, like I don't want to get like too like fundamentals, because like we all know like fundamentals don't always matter. Move card prices. Like demand is usually what matters, at least in the short term. But like to go into the DBS thing, each set is probably priced, but individually or whatever. But like I want to say DBS boxes are like 150 to $200 for like the good sets that contain God rares, maybe. And the cards that come out of them are like $1,000 plus raw. Whereas like this kind of stuff, you can't buy a box of this. Like you can't. Like it's just not available for sale. Like I've looked, and like I cannot find like this visual adventure. Like you can't like. And if this card like was available for sale, or if this box was available for sale, it'd be like probably $5,000 to $6,000. Like I've seen one visual adventure box that's outside of 95EX, which is the one that's got this art in it. And I bought that card graded already, because I sold the ones that I graded. I bought that graded for like $150. That box is like $1,500. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a $200 box, $1,000 card versus like a $1,500 to $2,000 box, $150 card. You know what I'm saying? Like that is infinitely harder to find. So that's just like what I'm more confident in. Like, yeah, like
true rarity, not like
true rarity. Like you can't replace that. Like you cannot replace that. You know, so it's and even like finding the cards raw. The condition is so insane to try to get them, whereas like God rare is almost always 10. Like this stuff is hard. Like a 9 is like a 10, and a 10 is just if like PSA or BGS is like, yeah, we'll give them a 10, because none of these cards are perfect. Like with the print, you know, the cuts on the cards, like they always have like little tiny things on the edges, like an extra little piece of card on them. Like you never will get a 10, like a true 10. Like if you're comparing it to modern Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or something like none of those cards are actual 10s. If you get a 10, it's like because you got lucky. I mean, like I've sent One Piece Cardos Visual Adventure, where it's like this is a 10 for what it is, but it's not like a Pokemon 10. There's like little surface issues or print roller issues. Like there's always going to be that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So again, like I don't want to get too fundamentals-y with it, but like that is just more compelling to me than you know what I'm saying. And maybe I'm dusted for that, but that's just how I think about it. So
no, I think there's something to be said for like true rarity. It's harder to replicate and it's harder to like do as a business, but as a collector, true rarity, it does usually, it's where collectors tend to gravitate towards, it seems. Because like if you're truly collecting something and you know that you have one of X, Y, or Z, or the few in the world that exists, do you really need it to be a 10? Do you need it to be no, you own the thing. You want it because it's so rare. You know it's there. It's like it's just bonus if it is. So yeah, I do think that when it comes to that kind of stuff, you're probably right. Like collectors and stuff will most likely go for the side of scarcity, rarity, rather than manufactured or artificial rarity or scarcity, but like organic, real scarcity or rarity. That being said, I think that's a podcast, guys. Unless there's anything else you want to wrap up with, I want to say if you guys can and you'd like to, leave a comment down below. Your ideas for invest, flip, or skip. 3 things that you want to see us compare. We'll review them, and if we like any, we'll try to shout you out. We love it when you participate in that. But thanks again, Antonio, for the last one. but yeah, if there's anything else, any other, we're going to be back next week for the holidays. So make sure you tune in sometime next week. We're going to try to do it on Wednesday, but it may be a little earlier, a little later, depending on what our schedules are like. But little pre-holiday special show for you guys here. So that'll be good. Then we're going to take a week off for New Year's and then get right back at it. So looking forward to that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one.
Yeah, thank you guys. Feel free to leave any other invest, flip, skip, or other things you want us to talk about. Feel free to always leave those in the comment. Appreciate you guys. I think Josh, we might be able to squeeze some regular videos out of Josh, hopefully before the end of the year. I'm gonna try to do 2 in like the next week or so. But yeah, again, appreciate you guys' support as always, and
join the Discord. I didn't even pump the Discord once today. Join the Discord. It'll be down below. We have a Discord now, or I have a Discord now. So.
All right, I'm good. I'm good to go.
All right, we'll see you guys. See you next time.